again to week 3 of the Hearthstone Global Games. My name is Falcone, joined on the desk once again by Mr. Neil Bond. Lorinda, did you watch much of that Hearthstone game? What did you think of it?
I saw bits of it, but not all of it. It looked like a massacre from where I was sat at times.
It was brutal. It was quick.
Right, it was definitely very quick. I noticed that much. I was out of my break, and then I'm back here.
And surprising, because Spain really didn't do so great before. It's fair to say that. I know that they've had a little bit of stick online for their performance, but coming back with a 3-0 of their own.
Yeah, so that gets them right back to exactly level in the group, and you've got to come in the top 3, so exactly level's right on that borderline, obviously with a long way still to go, 3 more matches.
Let's not dwell on the past too much, though. Next up, Chile versus Finland. Oh, more names that I'm going to struggle to say.
Go for it.
Topo Pablo, Saitama, Nifu, and Machine from Chile.
Okay, and Janetsky, Kufton, Ursi, and Wampi for Finland, but I believe that Kufton's not been able to make it today, and he's going to have one of the other 3 replace him.
I think it's Ursi. I think, off the top of my head, I believe Ursi is playing for him.
Look at Chile. That looks like something out of Ungoro itself.
I don't remember the last time I saw snow in real life.
You live in England too, right?
We don't get it. We're in my area.
Oh, okay. Sorry for some.
Maybe England is bigger than we give it credit for.
And there's Finland, which I'm sure also gets its fair share of snow.
Look at that.
That looks absolutely beautiful as well. I keep saying everywhere looks absolutely
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah, I did it again, Neil. There's we got a tally chart going for each time we call something absolutely beautiful, because these countries are beautiful. It's just a fact.
Yeah. Maybe England does that to you. Okay, Chile versus Finland, there is the lineup. Janetsky is going to lead out. And Ursi is allowed to replace Kufton for one of the games, because Kufton has said in advance that he couldn't make this particular date. Obviously, with so many matches, some players will have to miss some. Can't be replaced from outside of the team. You just lose a match if that happens. But if one player can't make it, as told you in advance, they are able to be replaced. And like you say, Ursi doing that replacement job.
Once again, going to quickly explain the format for the Hearthstone Global Games. It is a best out of 5. Each player has a choice between 2 decks. They're going to decide in the moment which one they want to play, and then they find out what their opponent's playing as well. If we go down to the 5th game, because obviously there's only 4 players in the team, if we go to game 5, there's an ace player, and the ace player is a player from the team that will be playing a second time. They have 3 decks to choose between. That's because it's the 2 decks from earlier plus their ace deck. They're allowed to choose at that moment between the deck they didn't choose earlier and their specific ace deck. I did not do a good job of explaining that. A lot of words just came out of my mouth there, but hopefully you guys back home get the idea.
Win 3 times, guys, and you win.
I should have just said that.
Win 3 times and you win.
I should have just said that.
But it is not like Conquest. It is a totally different match. Each pairing is just a best of 1, and you do 4 of those, and if nobody wins 3 times, you have an extra match to make somebody win the 3rd one.
And it's great. I love seeing different formats like this popping up in Hearthstone.
Right.
Because Conquest and Last Hero Standing have been the ones that have been around for a very long time, and there was some urge in the community to change it up a little bit. And RDU, who we'll be seeing playing later, came forward with Strike format, which a lot of players, some players like, a lot of players dislike. And now, of course, we've got this new format from the Hearthstone Global Games, and one of my favorite things about this is that there's no knowledge coming in. You don't start a game like, okay, well, I've seen that deck already, so now I know exactly what to mulligan.
Well, you don't, but you get some knowledge as the lineup progresses. That, they've brought 3 aggro decks so far. Would they bring 4 aggro decks? It's likely that this... There's so many classes now that have an aggro format and either a tempo or control format that, as you go down that lineup, you can start to make some inferences about your opponent's choices.
That's true, that's true. And as me and Dan were just talking about at the end of the previous set, as the Ungoro meta stabilizes more and more, that's where players will start to become a little bit more predictable, a little bit more consistent.
Right.
And where the counter-queuing aspect of this format will start to really come into play.
Counter-queuing, every legend's favorite thing.
Counter-queuing, something that we see a little bit more often
nowadays. The MMR change is definitely a thing that you have to factor into your ladder play as well as your tournament play now.
Some players particularly liking the change. Again, it means that you only
I think more players liked it than disliked it.
Yeah.
If Twitter is anything to go by, but we all know that you shouldn't go by social media all the time.
Nifu there on the left and Janetsky on the right from Finland. I had a chat with Hybe, another Finnish player earlier today, and he was telling me a little bit about the Finnish community, and he was saying that They're very, very accepting of new players. They love it when the new player in Finland gets into Hearthstone. They really are a welcoming scene.
Right.
They practice together a lot. They go to a lot of lands together. It's a very, very community-based thing, Hearthstone in Finland.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I mean, a lot of these players, Wampi and Kufton in particular, have been around since the dawn of time in terms of Hearthstone. And obviously, Ursi, second in DreamHack Winter, he's been around in 2015, all those years ago now, year and a half. But it's a long time in Hearthstone. These players have been around, so if the community wasn't very good, they would be dropping out. But they're hanging around for a reason, and like you say, Finland very community-based, and that will give them a good sense of team spirit going into this one.
And of course, team spirit, probably one of the most relevant facets of the Hearthstone global games. How good are you with your teammates? How much do you play and practice and skirmish together? This is a great way of proving how good your communication is with one another.
And talking of communication, Janetsky's communication to the world is that it's not Finland, it's Winland.
Yes.
Let's see if he can make this happen in the first game today.
As the anchor, that was his little quote on the voting thing. He knows he didn't need to be voted for, but every player got to have a little caption, his, yeah, Winland.
Looking for all the world like it's a Miracle Rogue versus Quest Warrior.
Once again, worth reminding you all back home, this is a team event. The players will be communicating with each other over comms.
Yeah, despite the fact that Janetsky is quite happy just sat there at the moment, making it look like this is a solo event. It is not. He will have his teammates, minus Kufton, of course, who is not unable to be here today. But they will have Ursi and Wampi in his ear, helping out a lot in this one.
And it's interesting knowing whether or not that's a good thing for Finland or a bad thing, having 3 players instead of 4. Some people have said that 4 is too many. 4 is too many voices.
Right.
3 is the right number. But Argentina didn't do very well with 3 players. Now Gaiden played 2 out of the 3 games and lost both of them.
Yeah. Just going to quickly look at this mulligan there, just interrupt you for a second. Janetsky kept backstab and eviscerate, choosing to throw away the other backstab. The joys of not knowing if your opponent is playing Quest Warrior or Pirate, so choosing to split the difference there and keep a fairly defensive start, cards that can be cycled with Auctioneer anyway, of course, but also trying to find some more stuff to do in those middle turns.
Now, tell me, Neil, do you believe the Warrior usually keeps the quest against Rogue? Because this is, again, it's a huge debate that's been coming up a lot recently. Does the Warrior keep the quest or does it get rid of the quest? It's Rogue.
And what are you looking for anyway? That's the question you've got to ask.
Question.
Exactly. And so against really aggressive decks, you definitely throw the quest away. Against really slow decks, you definitely keep it. Rogue is neither of those. And both of those. So I think keeping the quest is probably okay.
Okay.
I'm on the fence. Yeah, I'm not sure as to which is best. I'm on the fence when it comes to Warrior versus Rogue because of the mid-range nature of both of the Rogue decks.
Yeah, the Rogue, again, so varied, yet also so similar. It's.
I mean, there is an aggro Rogue build that we haven't seen in this tournament, I don't believe yet, that is doing the rounds, and we may see it in future weeks, but it's definitely a third best to the other 2 main decks.
Miracle Rogue, probably not quite as good against the Quest Warrior as the Quest Rogue would be. As Quest Rogue, once the quest is complete, is able to just start putting 5/5s on the board, generating infinite amounts of value with cards like Mimic Pod, Igneous Elemental, Novice Engineers, and eventually just overwhelming the Warrior's taunts. Right. Miracle Rogue, not quite as guaranteed a win in the late game against the Warrior, though still not a horrible matchup.
Yeah, having the Leroy option here presumably means there will be no Giants in this deck. Again, nothing is 100% in this particular tournament because players are trying to mix it up. But this is probably a slightly faster build, which will give us slightly more burst finish as opposed to having to play around Brawl quite so hard. And
we've seen a lot of different Miracle Road builds recently. There's been Giants as win conditions, Leroy, Violet Teacher, even Questing Adventurers are still around. So there are a lot of different ways you can build that deck, and that makes it harder to play around than decks which have more cards in common.
Yeah, Miracle Rogue. On the other side, Rogue in some ways is hard to play around anyway. A lot of the time it's try and get a board to stick and hope it all goes away. Keep appropriate removal in case they play an Auctioneer, but now there's no way to stealth it anymore. then that helps significantly in removing just an auctioneer, which means the rogue has to be more careful on its auctioneer turns.
There are rogue cards that are particularly difficult to remove, though, such as a happy little plant that we talked
Everybody's favourite Sherazin, which just slowly but surely eats up your resources. I think it was one of the big oversights by most people in the previews that, hey, this 5/3, as we see a Zarol, which indicates a lot of card stuff going to happen anytime soon.
I'm very happy to see Zarl in this deck. There's so much talk about it in the community around on the pro scene right now. Is Zarl good? It's very, very bad tempo, a 4-mana 3/2, but if you can get the stealth, the spare part, essentially, if you can get the stealth toxin from Zarl, stealth up the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, it's like Conceal never went away.
It was in some early builds of the Quest deck because you can get the Shadow Step effect as well.
That's true.
And get a load of stuff to bounce with and to generally just cause mayhem. But the Quest deck has long since advanced from that state and is now just all about completing quests with 0 and 1 drops as quickly as possible. But yeah, I mean, Zawel has always been on the fringe of Miracle because the 2 toxins that you pick up can work so well with Auctioneer, and they're pretty good cards, it turns out, as well.
The toxins, yeah, they are. Extra attack, extra damage, an extra Shadow Step effect. All of these things most rogue decks appreciate. And they usually all work very well with Gadgetzan Auctioneer as well. Nefu putting down the Dirty Rat there.
And doing Janetsky a favour there. He's been wondering how to get that onto the board without blowing up his 1/1s for some time now. So getting it out of his hand and getting something done, taking a charge off the War Axe, probably not the worst thing that could have happened there.
Probably the best outcome for Finland, though. Losing Leroy, losing Gadgetzan Auctioneer, and losing Zarul would have been a bit of a problem. I guess Zarul, you still get the Death Rattle, but Auctioneer would have been cleared up by the Fiery War Axe and the Whirlwind.
With Hallucination and with Zawel, I do still wonder if maybe there are giants in this. It wouldn't be normal to have giants with Leroy, as I understand it, but with so many cheapo spells, it's interesting to see where this one's headed.
See, it's oh, okay. Looks like the Hallucination was coming down now. Janetsky. I'd be surprised if he's not considering Zarl this turn. Just quickly counting the cards in hand there. There's 8 right now, which means you don't lose anything if you play it. You don't mill anything, I mean.
And when do you want to play the Auctioneer is where he'll be thinking here. I've got a load of cheap stuff in my hand. I'm under no pressure from my opponent.
Well, I know a guy is actually very similar to Hallucination in the fact that it's a 1-mana card that discovers a card. It works well with Gadgetzan Auctioneer. The downside to I know a guy is that it can't get you a spell, which also works with Auctioneer. But 1-mana spells, rogues like them.
Yeah, Rogue's also good at keeping the way clear, so even though the Brawl would be a consideration if things got out of hand, they're not going to get out of hand any time soon. And definitely in a very good spot here, Finland.
It's just about knowing how long to hold on to these valuable resources for. I fully expect Zarl to come down soon. It's nice for Janetsky to have that in his hand, just ready for when he's got a dud turn, maybe. I know a guy could also be good for that.
Yeah, they can pick up something massive as well, of course. There's some pretty big taunts in this world these days. So that's also a win condition on top of all the other stuff that's likely in here. And all Janetsky has to do now is work out exactly when to go Auctioneer crazy. He's in no hurry. He's not under any pressure anytime soon. The quest is advanced a little way, but that is the thing that will put the clock on him in the end.
Yeah, the quest is pretty good against Miracle Rogue once it eventually gets there. A lot of the time, Miracle Rogues have found their win condition already by that time. They're very, very good at digging through their deck. Leroy Jenkins, Cold Bloods, maybe Arcane Giants. If they're faster than the quest completion, then it works out well for the Rogue.
Yeah, not putting any pressure on himself either at the moment, though, so any moment now he's going to have to start trying to put things down to make some sort of effort to flood the board. Sudden Genesis. More cards that fill cards.
Blood Thistle Toxin, a 1-mana Shadow Step.
1-mana Shadow Step, but it's not a quest, so loads of things you can do with that. You can just get another Zarul and see what you want to do with that instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, other rogue decks as well have started running Shadow Step a lot. I'm talking about the tempo rogues that we saw in the Gadgetzan meta also. Shadow Step is very strong with Swashbuckler, cards like Edwin Van Cleef, cards like Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah. More problems, though, coming up for Finland, as they're not going to be able to get through these taunts anytime soon. It's going to have to be maybe an Auctioneer turn sooner rather than later to start picking off the taunts and clearing the way for some minion damage, because with the Warrior on 27 and playing taunts on a regular basis, that clock is definitely ticking.
I'm racking my brains trying to work out if there's any way Janetsky can take advantage of Sudden Genesis.
I mean, backstab your own Auctioneer at some point, but you need 1,000,000 mana to be able to do that.
Well, preparation.
Sure. Yeah, he doesn't have any of that good stuff right now, apart from obviously Coin, which he has nurtured all the way through to this point. Let's see. All of Chile's turns are fairly straightforward at the moment. You know, they have a lot of options.
Oh!
Another option to bounce stuff. Well, that's good. Whether it's bad, we'll wait and see. But Leroy Jenkins is now able to do 18 in a turn.
Yeah, there's not quite the mana for that, is there?
Not yet, but there will be later.
5 plus 3.
It's got to get through anyway. It's not going to be any time soon,
Yeah.
just to clarify. But that is a thing that they will be looking towards winning the game with.
Leroy also has other ways of dealing multiple damage. If Janetsky maybe picks up a Razor Petal at some point, then Leroy, Razor Petal, prep Sudden Genesis. That's 18. Then you Shadow Step one of the Leroys, play it again next turn.
That sounds pretty evil as well. This is how 2014 Miracle Rogue used to work, of course.
Miracle Rogue just never runs out of value nowadays. Because of cards like Hallucination, we've got this I Know It guy now. It could summon... what's the biggest taunt you can think of off the top of your head? Sogoth's pretty big. I'm sure there are bigger ones. And just the fact that even old Miracle Rogue would eventually run out of cards and sort of start whiffing. But new Miracle Rogue can pick up huge cards out of nowhere that they have no right to be able to play.
Janetsky, they're finding a way using that Blood Thistle to use his SI7 to get through the Ali Armorsmith with minimum of fuss and minimum of armor given away, and letting these 1/1s even get a bit of chip damage in there. Definitely going to be a big deal, given that the hand is going to start filling up as soon as this Auctioneer does its thing. They would dearly love a preparation to come off the top just to have one big turn. But the resources are starting to run out, at least in hand here for Chile.
Nifu playing the Dirty Rat, potentially putting a stop to the Leroy Jenkins, gets it. Now, do we guarantee clearing the Auctioneer, or do you brawl? He's going to guarantee it.
Yeah, just get rid of this and
Seems
probably win the game. It makes it so difficult now to really achieve anything here if you're Finland. Yeah, Janetsky's face tells that story. Good timing on the Dirty Rat there.
Yeah, that was significantly stronger than using the Brawl as well. You're right. Dirty Rat. Even the other side of the 50-50 was Leroy Jenkins, which would have been bad for Janetsky because he's got all of these Shadow Steps. That Leroy is potentially the key card. Sorry, just one Shadow Step left now. It's potentially the key card in his hand.
Stonehill Defender, an option here just for some more value if Finland feel they need it now they've lost that Auctioneer. Southie Deckhand, by the way, here just for a little bit of extra burst as well. So there may be more burst in this deck than your average common or garden Miracle Rogue.
These aren't huge taunts, are they, coming out here? Silverback Patriarch, a much worse Stonehill Defender, actually.
You can use a Curator to get your Azure Drake, Dan.
Oh.
Maybe not anymore.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Oh dear. I'm sorry, Azure Drake fans.
It's a shame it doesn't grab your flower. Curator, add a Beast, Dragon, Murloc and Flower to your hand.
That would be a thing. Is it actually Flower, the type?
Well, there isn't a type for it.
Just type Sheridan.
Yeah.
Okay. Finland just still plugging away at getting through this board, but it's taking them some time just to get through a Dirty Rat, and there's more where that came from with this Primordial Drake. It would clear the board if they wanted to go down that route for Chile.
Sudden Genesis. I'm just looking at this card because it could end up being a huge, huge surprise for Nifu at some point. You don't play around your opponent having damaged minions.
Although, Warrior sort of plays around them to some degree by killing them every turn, just for a bit of fun. But Looks like that's what he's going to do. They're seriously considering just attacking in here, playing the Drake and leaving themselves with a 2-1 and a 4-8. Seems like a decent position to be in against nothing in particular.
I don't mind this. I don't mind having a 4-8 in Chile's position right now. SI7 agent not going to do that much. I said earlier that Janetsky has infinite value. Where's it gone?
It went with Dirty Rat pulling out the Auctioneer.
That is where
That
it went.
slowed things down, but a lot of that value is still there as latent value. It can be used later in the game if the second Auctioneer comes out, for instance. And I mean, looking at the hand size, I think the quest is only on 4, if I remember correctly, which I probably didn't. There's still a long way to go for the clock, and so Finland do still have some more card draws to get through that.
It's safe to say the quest is not as completed as Nifu would like it to be.
Right.
Because at this stage in the game, he really wants to be using that Ragnar's hero power. He wants to be pressuring down Janetsky, preventing him from picking up his second Gadgetzan Auctioneer and starting to cycle through his deck. But it's just, where are the taunts? It's just not happening.
Yeah, there's every chance. I mean, you would think the standard play here for Chile would just be to blast through this Fen Creeper and just leave the 3-3 up. But if they don't do that, then suddenly the Sudden Genesis, as it were, will start to get some value.
Still think Sudden Genesis, if you could somehow proc the Sudden Genesis on Sherazin, that might be the best bet with that card. Because that's infinite value twice.
Double infinity.
And that would have been great on turn 6 or something.
Right.
The problem is, Sherazin's still in the deck.
So who wins the waiting game is the question. Chile are waiting to complete their quest. It is on 4 out of 7. Meanwhile, Finland are waiting to have an explosive turn, possibly with an Auctioneer, or possibly, although it seems increasingly unlikely, with maybe an Arcane Giant or Sherazin.
Shaku, another card that's in and out of Miracle Rogue decks at the moment. Very, very popular back in the Gadgetzan.
And I'm starting to wonder if this is the very low curve rogue that plays Undercity Huckster as well.
Okay.
We haven't seen one, so it probably is not. But yeah, that South Sea deck hand is curious in the deck. And this Miracle Rogue is definitely more aggressive than normal.
Janetsky finally finding a method of getting rid of that huge Dragon Taunt, finally. Nifu actually out of threats. Picking up a second Ravaging Ghoul off the top. Doesn't really achieve that much.
They may have to play it just to put something on the board. It's one way to get rid of the Shaku. You can't let Shaku just keep smashing around, otherwise you'll just draw too many cards.
Well, Janetsky on the way back to Value Town right now with this Shaku. He's going to get at least one draw with it, possibly two, depending on what Nifu decides to do here. In fact, if Ravaging Ghoul did come down, we may find a use for the Sudden Genesis after all.
Really might. That would be pretty important as well. Just keeping an eye on Finland's health total. It is by no means a problem just yet. But they are down to 16, which is 2 rag shots, but they're a long way away from having to worry about rag shots.
If there was a preparation, then the double Leroy is actually possible. Razor Petal Lasher, Leroy Jenkins. Oh no, you'd have to play the Razor Petal Lasher first, and then in a future turn, Leroy Jenkins, Razor Petal, prep Orcoin, Sudden Genesis.
There's a lot of interactions here.
There really is.
All of which aren't particularly great, but none of which are that bad.
Right.
And Finland, you know, this is where you're happy you're playing a teaming event. You can all look at different aspects of the turn, and they're going to go with your play by the look of it. They're going to...
Oh! Okay, this
Genesis the Leroy and get some stuff going on. Interesting they didn't attack with Shaku first, which I thought might be a thing they could do, see what the card is that they pick up. But apart from that, this turn looks pretty exciting.
Nifu was looking very calm there, despite the fact that this was a pretty unique situation. 2 Shakus now on the board, one of them still stealth.
Which is why they would choose
why.
to do that ordering, of course it will be.
Brawl is going to be the downside for Janetsky there.
All Nifu can do is have a bit of a laugh about this play. This is pretty silly.
Yeah, Nifu stayed very, very calm for a moment there, and then as you said, there was a good little chuckle. Armorsmith picked up by Nifu now. He's just picking up nothing. He is just picking up no threats whatsoever, as his quest still on 4 out of 7.
One of the problems of Quest Warrior, which is why it isn't the best deck in the game, it's up there, is that it sometimes struggles to do anything. it spends its whole game not dying, gets a quest and wins. Well, if you're not dying by playing fewer and fewer taunts, people are starting to play armor smiths, people are starting to get more and more traditional warrior cards in their deck, then you've got to not die for even longer. Otherwise, your quest can't win you the game. So the longer you postpone the win condition, which is fine against mega aggressive decks, the more you are going to struggle against the more mid-range stuff.
The brawl comes down. Janetsky really hoping the armor smith doesn't win this. Okay, one of the Shakus did. Does Nefu execute it?
It's not an easy decision. It's one of your very last cards in your hand. But if you don't execute it, then you're talking about this massive value that they're getting. Finland are going to get even more value. And it's just not a position you want to be in. And Chile decide, let's just hope their hand is full of nothing. They didn't sudden Genesis anything. Maybe they're desperate to pick up anything at all.
The hand.
Sudden Genesing just a 6-1 Leroy is an indication that maybe Janetsky's out of stuff as well.
The hand is almost full of nothing. You can argue Frothing Berserker is incredibly strong preparation. Another nothing card at the moment. The interesting thing about this game is that both players have had awful starts. The Dirty Rat killing the Gadgetzan Auctioneer from Janetsky really put a stop to anything he could do, slowing down the road. But unfortunately for Nefu, he wasn't able to take advantage of it yet, as he's had barely any taunts. Another card gets picked up, and it's another card that's not a taunt. Quest is still only on 4.
It's an even harder decision this time. If you Ravaging Ghoul and execute, it clears the board effectively because your Ghoul will face off against the Lasher and the Hero Power. But your opponent has 5 cards and you would have none. And that is not exactly where you want to be. So just armoring up, which is the equivalent of killing off the 2-2 every single turn, and just waiting most likely for a bigger target. The second Auctioneer springs to mind, but the second Auctioneer is going to do all of its damage the turn it's played.
Frothing Berserker has a reputation of being one of the most devastating cards in Hearthstone. But
it does.
In this position, it's just not that threatening, is it?
I mean, it's not from what we can see and from where Janetsky sat. From where Chile sat, it's a totally different proposition. That thing's a minion ready to go completely crazy. Like this. But he'd still have had a minion on the board anyway, Janetsky.
Frothing Berserker with a little bit of help from the Cold Bloods. His blade isn't quite thirsty enough. He needs to...
puts it on the other minion, even though it's only got 2 health. This way, it splits up the problems. Whilst Nefu is dealing with the 6-2, the Frothing Berserker will be getting bigger. And that is the reason for splitting the damage. Again, Finland also... This isn't the attack they're expecting to win the game with, although it's helping a lot. This is just distracting the warrior until they inevitably draw into their Auctioneer and just put a load of stuff all over the board.
Hey, a taunt!
Primordial Drake, there are taunts in this taunt warrior deck.
He doesn't have the mana to play it. Unfortunately, Shield Blood came first, which means Nefu has another turn of just sitting there and doing nothing. This is a game that, by all means, after the Dirty Rat play, the warrior should have been so favoured. The rogue had very, very little, but...
I think we may see him be very tempted to execute this time around, because what he wants to do next turn is play Primordial Drake without buffing that Frothing Berserker. So he's got to be very tempted this time to Ravaging Ghoul execute, which also either deals with a 6-2 or saves you at least 6 health, but they're being very patient. I like to see this. Patient play is usually better. We saw teams earlier postponing dealing with stuff several turns, making a huge difference. But Janetsky doesn't mind. He's going to hit another 9 to the face. Check he hasn't got lethal, which he hasn't, and proceed up therefore that way.
And now it is time. Nefu has to drop the Primordial Drake. It does buff the Frothing Berserker, but not by too much. It's not enough to make the Frothing Berserker strong enough to deal single-handedly with Primordial Drake. Nefu does pick up, of course, Direhorn Hatchling. He could play that and Ravaging Ghoul and execute if he wanted to. Though I expect that we'll just see the Drake come down with an armor up.
Yeah, the only question in Chile's mind is they know that Finland have got a handful of nothing. They know one of those things is a Razor Petal. And the other cards, I don't think it's a stretch to realise that Backstab is probably one of those cards.
If he's tracking, he knows one's the coin too.
Yeah, so yeah, it would be tempting to do the execute as well. Yeah, he's going to use it. I feel this is correct here.
Makes a lot of sense. You put a big body on the board. If your opponent had an Arcane Giant in his hand, he'd have played it already, right?
Yeah, Janetsky turns his nose up because his hand is one of those rogue hands that rogue players like to cry about.
5 out of 7. Janetsky is running out of time, and he doesn't have a way of getting rid of this dragon.
The quest will be completed next turn if Chile want to. Somehow they've got into their taunts, and if they feel like it, they can actually start completing the quest. Not only that, but Finland are going to be so low on health that the quest isn't going to be around for long. It's going to be hit you in the face, win. The weapon from the quest might just be enough.
So Finland is going to be wondering, do I have to sap this dragon? If I do, the quest gets closer to completion.
Yeah, you've just got to eat the 4 and hope there's no more taunt in hand. You've got to discuss it, but...
Still, only 1 taunt in hand. Quest is only on 5 out of 7. There's no way for Nefu to complete it just yet.
Yeah, looked over all the world like he'd be able to soon. Like, where are our Stonehill defenders, as Nefu is saying? Just where are they? That would have been the quest complete. But no, just picking up yet another non-taunt. The odds seemed like they were almost certain to be able to complete the quest on this turn.
Nefu just looks confused. Like, what? How many taunts are actually in this deck? It's got to get to the point soon where every remaining card has taunt on it.
Must be getting that way, yeah. Obviously, with the dire horns not dying, then there's fewer taunts in there until they do. But now Finland have to take evasive action and start removing some stuff. And they know if they use a sap, they're probably just dead to the quest. So need to find a way to deal with everything here without using the sap, and that doesn't seem very possible right now.
Yeah, Backstab Eviscerate could be used to get rid of the 3/6.
Is there a way they can win next turn with eviscerate something if they get an auctioneer, for instance? Can they? Is there enough damage in their deck? Leroy's gone. We've only seen 1 deckhand, so there might be another 2 bursts there.
There's taunts in the way, though. There's always going to be.
But you don't mind
taunts
sapping things if you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
And so, if they could draw their whole deck with a top deck
okay,
auctioneer,
sure. So auctioneer, coin,
you've got
sap,
2 preparations, a
deckhand.
coin. You can probably draw almost all the cards in your deck. Is there 17 or 19 burst in there next turn? There probably isn't.
I don't think there is.
Sounds like a lot when your Leroy's gone.
Double Eviscerate, deckhand, weapon, that's 11.
Yeah, and you start running out pretty good. A Cold Blood, 15.
But how much more is there going to be?
Not now, they've had to use the Eviscerate, this is it. And now
I was going to say, and then Shadow set the deckhand, there's your 17. So we actually did get there.
There was a way of getting 17 in some sort of weird world where the curator's picked up now, quest complete. And yeah, Janetsky's still frustrated. Feels like there's a way they can win this game, or did. Like there seemed to be the whole, just give me the auctioneer now going on, because they can draw their entire library next turn.
If there was no way of Janetsky to win the game, he would have conceded by now.
I don't know if he'd have conceded, but he would have looked a lot less frustrated when he's explaining stuff to his team.
Right.
I don't think you concede in case your opponents do something that allows you to win, like somehow accidentally face tank a minion, or take an extra 2 damage that helps you win if you can add up 15 and there's 70. Something stupid. Or if there's 17 and you're expecting them to tank up, but you know your opponents haven't countered the damage, for instance. But
Importantly, the quest is now complete.
And now it's complete, and now bad things will happen to Finland next turn. If they draw the auctioneer, we will see their deck, but I don't think they'll be able to win, even if they get it.
Sharazan, approximately 23 cards, too deep into the deck. You want that right at the beginning. It's a recurring resource. It needs to go on the board early, or it's now pretty much just a 4-mana 5/3. That's useless to Finland at this point in the game, and Janetsky realizes it's time to give up.
Yeah, Dirty Rat hit the auctioneer very early there on about turn 6 or 7. Chile timing that Dirty Rat, it would have hit Leroy had it not hit the auctioneer, which would have been an okay target as well, although obviously nowhere near as devastating as hitting the auctioneer. And well timed there from Chile, giving themselves every chance to win that game, taking their time with the quest. They had to suffer a few frustrating turns as well, but by riding that out, they did get through there, and they take a deserved 1-0 lead, although Finland would probably argue they're entitled to draw slightly better than they did.
I think a few bad turns is an understatement. That was a slow game. I mean, Taunt Warrior is always slow, but not that slow. How many draws in a row did Chile have with no taunts?
I mean, it felt like a huge amount, it was, because that number's 4 or 5. It was a lot of draws. Right. And we're going to have another grindy one next with Ursi taking on the Paladin. Might not be grindy, it might be aggro Murloc, and Machine taking Priest, which is pretty grindy most of the time.
Doubt we'll see aggro Priest.
You doubt we'll see aggro Priest. I don't even know how you try and build that. But I'm sure somebody will try it somewhere.
Yeah, so Paladin versus Priest. I feel as though this is actually one of the matchups, depending, of course, on exactly which Paladin list you've got, where Priest has a pretty good chance. It's a deck which thrives in the late game,
Right.
especially with the Miracle, maybe Free from Amber, Medievalists. They want to just survive for as long as possible and then just break loose with everything they've got.
Yeah, I think the mid-range Paladin list is pretty good against Priest. It just seems to have that right balance of, I can kill you, but if you do get to the late game, I can still play my Tyrians and my Rag Light Lords and just kill you again if you've survived somehow.
Of course.
The aggro one is interesting because obviously the Priest looking for those early removal spells, those early board challenges, a bit difficult. And obviously the slower Paladin, we hardly see actually. N'Zoth Paladin, absolutely massive in Gold Series China. We've not seen one at all this weekend.
No, N'Zoth Paladin, been tinkered with, as you say. It was very, very big a few weeks ago when your deck list submission was for that tournament. It was fairly big at the start of last year when Whispers of the Old Gods came out. It was one area in which Tyrion struggled for about a year and a half, is the fact that Entomb existed.
Yeah, Entomb, of course, now rotated out, thank goodness, because that was a card that you couldn't do much about. It was like they'd wait for your one big card and bosh.
So unless you're a priest that happens to have a mind control on hand,
which people have been doing. Vego's Priest did play a mind control for that reason. It's, I can control the game up till turn 9 and might get loose. That's fine, I can take one hit from Tyrion, then I'll steal it. And by turn 10, you don't need 2 of them in your deck. You've got a good chance of drawing it, like 50-50 chance of drawing it by that turn anyway. So yeah, one mind control, a piece of tech that Vegas was playing recently, and he did very, very well at Legend with that deck.
Also, if you get a very crazy Lyra turn, you sometimes find mind controls stack up in your hand a little bit.
Sure, they're the cards you can't dump on live returns, oddly enough, when the card costs 10 or 9 or 8, depending on reducers and stuff.
Finland are going to want to get a win here. I would imagine that that last game was one of the more frustrating losses that Finland could have put up with, because they should have had such a good start. They know how poorly their opponents drew. It was just that one dirty rat that completely shut Finland down. And they started drawing as poorly as Chile did. They had a great time with the sudden Genesis. We were racking our brains about, like, can that be good? Shaku plus Leroy? Yeah, probably pretty good target to sudden Genesis.
Yeah,
was it enough?
Well.
No, it wasn't enough.
Yeah, nearly was, though. Managed to get them a lot of damage, especially with the cold blood a couple of turns later. Just left them that little bit short. But of course, if the warrior is not drawing taunt, it's drawing things that buy it time. And that's kind of how it works.
Both
how it's built, which is why it's control.
Both executes came up, one after the other almost. Anyway.
Gentle Megasaur, Tyrion Fordring, Consecration. Could be anything, but looks more like the mid-range because the Consecration isn't in all of them.
Yeah, some of the aggressive decks do. The one we saw in the previous series where we had the aggressive Paladin versus a mid-range one, and both round 1 Consecration. I think the mid-range one actually round 2. Now we've seen Ragnar's Light Lord, though, we get and Outdoor Peacekeeper, we get a clearer picture.
Yeah, this is the mid-range Murloc Paladin. Basically looks to curve through with early Murlocs and then just do Paladin things with card advantage in the later game. It's very playable against nearly any other deck, which is one of the reasons to bring it here. One of the reasons not to bring it is it's kind of predictable, and a lot of people know how to play against it now.
Yeah, it's been stable as one of the top decks in the meta for almost a week now, I'd say. Maybe over a week even, which is a long time for the largely fluctuating meta that we still have. Machine, with his Lyra in opening hand there, we probably will see some Miracle Priest shenanigans a little bit later on. I imagine this is one of those games that will go on long enough for us to see that. Yeah,
Machine got very close to making a big name for himself last year, actually. He represented Chile in the WESG Americas finals, where the top 6, I believe, went through to the main finals, and he came in the top 8 in that event. So just missed out by 2 places on going to the tournament that starts from the Philippines, ended up winning 150,000 in. Machine was there or thereabouts in the later stages of qualifying for that one.
So close, yet so far.
And that's, yeah, exactly. This is something that this tournament is going to highlight several of those players, and hopefully some of those guys can break out in Hearthstone Global Games and finally make that name for themselves that they deserve.
Ursi talking to Team Finland. about whether or not to play this Hydrologist. It's an awkward turn. Having to deal with a turn 1 North Cleric can be horrible if you're playing one of these classes where you don't have an abundance of 2-mana 3/2s. Hydrologist is fine, you get a secret, great, but you're giving a free draw back to Machine.
An expensive free draw. It costs you your turn. But yes,
true.
it is a free draw nonetheless. In a matchup where you've not drawn your Murlocs, which means it's probably going to go a long way, so that free draw is worth a little bit more than normal.
No getaway Kodo there for Ursi, but Redemption, probably a pretty good second best in this situation.
Yeah, setting out for the grindy game. And Finland's hand is about as bad as this deck can draw. One of the things this deck is very good at is drawing consistently early game into mid game into late game. The curve is really, really nice in this deck.
It is good at doing that. It's one of the reasons that mid-range Paladin has such a strong chance against the aggressive Paladin builds, because they have a, maybe not as high a chance of drawing 1-2-3, but they still have a very strong chance of drawing 1-2-3.
Yeah, and they just haven't come close in this way. I mean, they've drawn the 2-3 in fairness, so I guess they have come close. But
not the right three,
but they've
though.
not drawn the numbers, the minions that they were hoping to draw, of course. Outdoor Peacekeeper, often the one you want to draw to slow down a deck, but not in this particular situation. And there you go, Machine, Team Chile deciding that the card isn't worth it compared to the tempo on offer from playing this Tar Creeper, which will completely and utterly slow down. You don't want to Outdoor Peacekeeper that minion, by the way.
I have to say, I'm not 100% on that interaction. Tell me.
It stays as a 3/5.
Yeah, that doesn't.
The wording, I believe, is has +2 attack during your opponent's turn. So you turn it into a 1/5 that has +2 attack.
Right.
So it's still a 3/5.
Makes perfect sense.
We've all done it on Lightwell at some point.
It's like with the Cavern.
I guess we're going to prove me right or wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like with Cavern Rogue, sort of. Like if you play Outdoor on a minion in Cavern Rogue, then the quest is played, the minion then gets 5 attack back.
Yes.
Obviously, if you play Outdoor after the quest has been played, it does retain the 1.
Yeah, because it sets the base level to 5, whereas this sets the base level to 1, but it's permanently got the +2.
It's complicated stuff. We understand it, just about. And now, Chile could draw a few cards this turn.
They really could.
Playing the second North Shore Cleric, getting rid of Hydrologist, and healing up the first North Shore Cleric seems like an okay play to me.
Yeah, starting to draw a lot of cards if they want to go down that route, and no reason not to, I don't think. You know, the Paladin has to do a quality consecration or something in coming turns, not even going to happen for a while, then you don't care, and all the time, these clerics could sit around for some time.
Actually opting to heal up the Tar instead.
Like to defend the clerics more likely for longer
sense.
against this true silver champion, for instance.
Do you remember the old saying, never go full Cleric?
Never go full North Shore, especially in the mirror match. But in this match,
This match is fine.
probably not going to go to fatigue, so you're okay for a while to fill up your hand, I think.
And there's no crazy way your opponent can play Pyromancer Circle of Healing or something to force you to draw a million cards. Consecration, dealing with one of the North Shore Clerics, Ursi, acknowledging how bad it is for the priest to draw too many cards.
Right.
And although this does allow Machine to draw one more card with a heal this turn, in the long run, it prevents a lot of card draw.
Yeah, I think they may have to choose to take this one. Although playing a Priest of the Feast as a 3/6 against an empty board Paladin is definitely a tempting situation, especially when the Paladin has already played one Outdoor. So they may choose to forego that card and grab control of the board. By grabbing control of the board, when they make the trades, they'll get that card back and more a lot of the time anyway.
Now, going into turn 5, Ursi, he does have Stampede and Kodo, which would get rid of that pesky North Shore Cleric. We can see a Doomsayer in Machine's hand. Interesting tech. It will force the game to go on for longer, and now there's no Kodo to counter it.
Yeah, I think the Kodo had to come down there. They've already used one Outdoor Peacekeeper, so it's not going to be a great combo card later. And that Cleric was set to do a lot of damage. You don't really want a True Silver a 1/1.
No.
You don't really develop much board. You lose a lot of weapon charge.
You may be able to True Silver this Priest of the Feast next turn, depending on exactly how Machine plays this.
This is weird. When you've got Lyra in your hand and you're on 5 mana, you're into this holding pattern for like 2 or 3 turns where You're just trying to make the game, in general, do nothing for 2 or 3 turns until you can get the value out of your Lyra. And
it adds a lot of complications, you're right, because cards like Power Word Shield, Shadow Word Pain, as we just saw played, you just want to hold on to them, and then the dream is that you pick up Radiant Elemental and just go. Unfortunately, that's not realistic most of the time. I see really whiffing on this Stonehill defender. As a 9-mana 6/10 could be okay, but there's no Tyrion here.
yeah, and he's wondering, where was that 6/10 taunt last game when we wanted to get a big taunt for our warrior card?
Right. I said, what's the biggest taunt you can think
There you
of?
go, that's a good
pretty
start.
Good
They would have settled for that in no uncertain terms. It would have got executed, but that's not the point.
So, the rest of his turn, yeah, Valfin Inquisitor seems like a safe bet, playing a Murloc using his hero power as well, making this board go as wide as he can. Priest of the Feast not posing too much of a threat just yet.
And making his top deck so much better with Murloc War Leaders and...
Gentle Megasaur.
Exactly, our friend the Megasaur coming back many times already today and many more in the coming weeks, I should think.
Incredibly strong card in the Journey to Ungoro set.
Yeah, surprisingly strong, and has enabled Murlocs to be really pretty good in the set without being ridiculous, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, Murloc War Leader was already quite strong, buffing all Murlocs attack by 2. The ability to then give those Murlocs Wind Fury or a further 3 attack. Yeah, I'm sure players aren't missing anything can happen that much. Murlocs are still pretty dominant.
Yeah, it's good, right? Because anything can happen felt like you were cheated sometimes, whereas these just feel like you've been ground down, which is fine, unless you do what the Philippines did.
Right. Chile looking at playing Lyra, finally, hovering it there, but time is running out. Now that the rope started burning, even if you think Lyra is the correct play, now might be the worst time to play it.
Go for it. Yeah, I agree with you entirely, but they haven't got much they can do with Lyra, and so they just want the small-time card advantage and hope that Lyra sticks to the board.
Shadow Madness, oftentimes just a much more expensive potion of madness.
This looks like the easiest true silver champion into Lyra into trade of your life.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, Lyra hasn't done that much. We see that Chile Machine has picked up Medivh the Guardian now.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why they chose to Lyra early, so that they can get their Medivh in play and not have to worry about all the... We saw Lyra played earlier with Medivh in play, and it's like, have a Wisp.
Yeah.
Have another Wisp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you definitely don't want to play them at the same time.
So maybe they're looking at playing Medivh on turn 8 and just wanted Lyra out of the way. Odd though that is, because they haven't picked up the Radiant Elemental, maybe they just thought, okay, let's just get something out of this. Don't have to be mega greedy.
This may be one of the most controlling priests that we've seen so far, with the Doomsayers in Medivh. We know they'll be free from Ambers in the deck as well. Do you think it's possible that Machine is running a mind control too?
Yes, it definitely is possible. I don't know either way, but it's entirely possible. That is a card we've seen around, and why not? And that would be absolutely game-breaking if the mind control could be picked up here, with Tyrion and Giant Mastodon going to provide a problem, given they've only one Shadow Word Death to take care of all this.
Unfortunately, there's no possibility, even if there was a mind control, there's no possibility of it coming down in time to do something about Tyrion and get rid of the Ashbringer. Second Shadow Word Death pickup, though, means that 2 out of these big 3 minions in the hand are easily disposed of. Ashbringer is going to stick around and cause Ursi some problems, and then the third big threat won't necessarily have a way of dealing with that.
Yeah, see if the... Just straight up play at the Doomsayer, and Finland are going to have the option to just stick Tyrion on the board. I don't think they'll take that option. I think they'll just wait and play the value game, but playing the Doomsayer, I guess they could use the Equality, but then they don't have another backup play. Depends what they draw. Yeah, playing the Doomsayer, we'll set up Medivh with the tempo.
It's got to be difficult for Ursi right now to have worked out exactly what's in this priest deck.
Right.
Now you've seen Doomsayer, you definitely expect it to be incredibly heavy, I think. And knowing that, you want to hold on to the Equality. So from this point onwards, I imagine Ursi's going to hold on to that with everything he's got. There's not really any reason to play now anyway. The Priest of the Feast is going to deal with itself.
0-9 Doomsayer. Quality doesn't do anything. Unless you pick up a big minion to play now, that is just not the definition of that at all.
Unfortunately, Tyrion has now been blocked well and
Well, the
truly.
choice is, do you want to play it? So this looks like it's setting up Medivh, and indeed it is. And yeah, the redemption there, if it was on the board last turn, would have been interesting.
Or if there's one more mana for Ursi, so he can play Redemption and Tyrion.
Yeah, exactly. So he's wondering whether he should have played this last turn, obviously now, but he's going to play it now. And Machine's going to be able to get down Medivh, and that's going to be a whole bunch of tempo for the Medivh. He can be taken down with the equality, but the damage will have been done in some ways there. And if you play equality next turn, you're not playing one of your big 8 drops.
You're also not getting rid of the minions that the Etish summons.
Right. Bless you.
Oh, you.
And Finland not... The last turn, I mean, they spent 1 mana out of 8. That's such a loss of tempo. And you can see how much this Doomsayer has done here. Machine saving it the whole game to play on that particular turn.
Yeah. What a great setup. One of the best things about Doomsayer that a lot of players don't realize is that it doesn't only clear the boards, but it prevents your opponent from playing anything in a setup turn before you want to put something big on the board uncontested. It's just one of the extra things that Doomsayer is able to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate for Finland that they didn't have any mid-range minions to play. They had all their big stuff plus the equalities. Had they had the equality and a 4-drop even, they could have just done something.
Right.
But now they've got some serious work to do.
I wonder if the giant Mastodon is it's just the play here. You've got 9 mana, you've got a 6/10, contest Medivh well enough.
Yeah, anything that makes them use their Shadow Word Death is good here. Again, you constantly have to evaluate, is Tyrion any use? Because of the Ashbringer, but he's useful as a 6/6 as well. They have to play one of these 3, and the Mastodon's probably the worst one. You usually lead with the worst one to draw out the removal spells that haven't been tested all game. Finland's deep in discussion. Actually going to go with the Tyrion, which means they will hit face or hit Medivh 4 here. Probably Medivh. Means the Ashbringer will be able to finish Medivh off next turn.
Yeah, they definitely...
They're eating 14 damage if they go this route.
They're definitely going to want to get rid of the weapon charge, or it just becomes completely wasted. Ursi, probably pretty sure that there's at least
keeping the weapon
Shadow
charge, so challenging the opponents to have Shadow Word Death.
I'm surprised by this, but also pretty good payoff if there is no Shadow Word.
Right.
Unfortunately, there is. Ursi may have decided he's starting to get into the position where he needs to start taking these risks because his opponent's ahead, and the only way to claw himself back ahead is to take some risks and have them pay off.
Remember, they have the redemption up, so the Tyrion will reappear.
That's true. Still, it doesn't
change that play particularly, but maybe they feel that, well, if he doesn't kill Tyrion, we're good. So we'll just keep our weapon back, and if he does kill it, we're good. So keeping the weapon charge, we don't mind either way. That could be the thing. If he doesn't kill Tyrion, we're just going to be just absolutely golden.
So Machine taking his time here, going to have to play this turn a little bit faster than maybe the previous ones because they need time to have a backup plan if the secret turns out to be something they weren't expecting, though they're not going to have time for a backup plan. Maybe they're expecting Getaway Kodo.
Yeah, it's hard to know what they're expecting. Let's see what they do, see if they have time, see if they want to use an Atish charge on this second Tyrion.
Whoa! A second Shadow Word Death coming down right now. Machine ran out of time. He didn't have time to work out another play. You're right. Hitting in the Atish, hitting in Medivh would have done the trick as well. Hitting in Atish, playing Holy Nova would have done the trick as well, but both Shadow Word Deaths used up here. Ursi still has 2 huge minions in his hand. This has turned out very well for Team Finland.
Yeah, they'll be able to equality consecrate this board and start to stabilize with their big minions still available, and they'll even be able to make some Murloc action as well.
Yeah. Quality, consecrate, hero power, Rockpool Hunter, buff up the hero power Murloc, seems fine. Ursi hovering over Ragnaros Lightlord though. Maybe he wants to take a more board proactive play this turn. I like the equality consecrate personally. Yeah,
given that they can make a Murloc and buff it, have some sort of board presence. I do feel that Machine possibly slipped up there having to use the Shadow Word Death, because now Ursi's got license. He knows that Shadow Word Deaths are both gone for the whole game. And so he can plan accordingly with that. And he's decided this is plenty. He's decided that healing up here, challenging Medivh with your 8/8 is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
This would get punished really, really heavily if it got mind controlled.
It would. Let's see. It's super unlikely that it's even in the deck, but if that was the draw there, at least the Trailblazer gets picked up. Wouldn't Shadow Where Death be good for Machine right now?
It'd be pretty reasonable. I mean, they can still do a similar play where you hit him with Medivh and the Atish, I guess, but yes, it would be good right now.
I believe that Machine and Team Chile just got punished by the communication aspect of the tournament.
Possibly.
They ran out of time. They spent the whole turn talking over their play, started making the play only after the rope had been burning, and weren't expecting the redemption.
They've pushed it close 2 or 3 times as well in this match already, where...
With Lyra as well.
Yeah, with a couple of other turns, so... Maybe the communication they're not quite on point just yet. It is their first match of the tournament.
Right.
A lot of teams have said it's really much harder than you first think, even if you've practiced.
Whoa, Sharazan!
Yeah, that would be pretty good on a Lyra turn later. But also Elise, and the value engine is just still coming here. That Sharazan, a big deal.
Quick callback to yesterday. Yesterday, a Lyra came from an Elise pack in a priest deck.
It did indeed.
And one of the miracle priests managed to get an insane Lyra turn before even drawing Lyra. I'm just saying it's possible.
It is indeed possible. Ursi here has done a good job of preserving resources. They managed to get card advantage in hand ahead of the priest, but they know that Elise is still has been played, so the pack is still to come. But they've done a good job, Finland, of keeping all options open, but at some point soon they're going to have to actually start cashing that in.
We haven't seen a Shadow Visions yet from Machine.
No, there could be a lot of packs.
That's true. That I hadn't considered that, but you're absolutely right. They can just pick up potentially 3 Elise packs total. At first I thought it was just very unfortunate card draw sequencing.
Right.
Now it's something that could pay off. Shadow Visions.
Yeah, when you get this deep through your deck, if you pick up Shadow Visions, the chance of you getting a pack is so large.
Yeah. Or a Free from Amber. They must run Free from Amber. They must run it. They run Medivh. I don't think you ever run Medivh without Free from Amber.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. You want things that are big, and they've drawn the pack. They won't be too disappointed, though. They could do with some stuff starting next turn. I think this turn, they're just going to play it.
They want to
play Priest of the Feast if needed.
They want to activate Sharazan, I imagine.
That's also a thing they can do, is just get a 5/3 back. We talked about the value that Sharazan can provide.
They'd probably prefer huge minions. Let's see here. Another Sharazan! What is going on this game?
There's so much stuff here.
Gluttonous Ooze.
That gets rid of Ashbringer. It's pretty grim. And they gave 5 armor as well, is that? Yeah, they gave 5 armor as well.
So, Chile have the option to play the Ironhide and also Sharazan to activate the first Sharazan again. We were joking about there being 2 Sharazan in the previous game for the Rogue. We're actually going to see it as a reality here, but in a Priest. Both Sharazans coming from different random effects.
Right now, though, there's going to be no way to easily activate Sharazans in a single turn. They're going to be able to do it this turn, obviously, but in future turns, all their cards costing 4, 5, and 6 pretty much. And obviously Doomsayer to activate Sharazan's a little bit false economy because he just blows it up next turn.
Ursi looks quite amused by this, it has to be said. He knows that in a Priest that's already used up Lyra, Sharazan isn't really a threat.
Right.
But
especially if it's a heavy, very, very heavy Priest.
But it's a very cute, happy card.
Yeah. I find it kind of terrifying, not happy, but yeah.
He's enjoying life.
Yeah, life eating people.
Corpse Maker. Pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
Dark
happy
but
plan.
happy, yeah. Another discover a secret, another lack of getaway Kodo.
Yeah. And so having to choose between Redemption and Repentance, Eye for an Eye is only useful really against Mage or in extremely odd situations. They're just hoping now there is no way to deal with these, but there is a Dragonfly potion in the deck. It will deal, of course, with their own Sharazan, though.
Poor Sharazan. Then again, Ursi making it slightly easier by at least trading 1 away.
Yeah. The Dragonfire Potion is going to get a lot of value here. Of course, there is still this giant Mastodon that not quite sure how the Priest deals with it. Deals with it with the second Doomsayer, most likely, at some point, in some way.
Yeah, I don't think the giant Mastodon on its own is the biggest threat. It's ultimately, it's just a 6'10", and Machine still has 38 health in total this game. He's not going to be worried about one 6'10" hitting him a few times.
They're actually going to get the Holy Nova to do the stuff here.
Seems good.
Chosen going to attack in. And then Holy Nova into just make a minion, and that should be enough to put them in a fantastic situation going towards a potential 2-0 lead.
What for the longest time seemed like a Paladin favoured game going on here.
Right, especially when Lyra was used pretty much for one card cycle.
That Atesh, something,
I won't do it again.
Somewhere between there. That Atesh seemed to help, well, that Atesh helped, and then the Elise pack made all of the difference.
Yeah, pretty good Elise pack. Not spectacular, just solid.
Just enough, right? Just enough extra
Turns out
value.
that 4 or 5 extra minions and spells of any sort are pretty good, especially when you have a very high chance of one of them being a legendary.
Yeah. One card, 5 mana, 5/5. Add 4 bad cards and 1 okay card to your hand.
Yep.
Probably fine.
They were largely cards that just did nothing. They were just stats. Which
Getting
is
rid of
fine,
Ashbringer was good though.
Lay on hand just in the nick of time. Yeah, getting rid of Ashbringer was a massive bonus.
That's helpful, but how much value does Ursi actually have left in his
I mean,
deck?
I was just going to go through. He's got like Sunkeeper Tarium, no use. Tyrion, gone.
There should be another Stonehill defender.
Sure, that might be an out.
And that could be a Tyrion. Hopefully not a giant Mastodon anyway.
And there is no current clear way of dealing with this Mastodon easily. Doomsayer will probably work, but
we have a potential Sharazan revival soon. I don't think we're quite there yet. No, we're not.
yeah, if they draw another cheap spell, although they might not have much cheap stuff left in this deck, to be fair.
He could revive Sharazan, but that would involve playing Doomsayer.
Right, yeah, that doesn't seem to particularly
which would then
do
kill
it.
the Sharazans anyway.
Yeah, so this is going to be really bad news, putting the Doomsayer behind this taunt. It's been set up over 2 turns for exactly this sort of eventuality.
Yep. Lay on hands almost definitely going to come down here from Ursi. Here it comes. Not too many cards left in his deck. The Curator going to pick up some more. True Silver Champion, Valfin Inquisitor. Not actually going to do that much.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out their game plan here, and the game plan has to be to get a situation where you can spam the board with 1/1s and then win with Tarion. I'm not sure how you generate that situation, but I can't really think of another situation where you ever win the game.
Shadow Visions. Finland is going to run out of time soon. Shadow Visions, I'm hoping that I haven't been wrong this whole time, and I'm hoping that we see a very fast Shadow Visions into Free from Amber this turn.
You're hoping it ends?
Oh, this works too. Radiant Elemental into Shadow Visions into Free from Amber.
Yeah, it seems very light. There's very few cards left in the pack.
Potion of Madness, Holy Nova, and Shadow Visions.
So let's see if they take the second Shadow Visions, which would imply the Free from Amber's what they're hunting for. It will only cost 1, but the Free from Amber will cost 7.
Yeah,
so.
there we go. If there's a Free from Amber in the deck, then they're going to go for it. Actually, Shadow Visions looping is a way of reviving Sharazan Seeds, so this works out for the best either way. Once again, Potion of Madness, Holy Nova, Powered Shield. This is very disappointing.
But Powered Shield, yet another thing to do with those Sharazans that you just pointed out. Shield up with the Radiant Elemental and off you go.
That's got to be the play this turn, activating the Sharazan Seeds, I imagine. Not much time left, though. Machine, once again, feeling the pressure of the rope burning down.
Do something, Machine. Again, maybe the communication not the best here.
Okay.
They got there in the end, and now there's 2/5/3 terrifying plants on the Priest side of the board. What's even going on here, Dan?
Very, very happy plants.
Happy plants
Loving
indeed,
life.
but happy Finland kind of. They're going to be able to have a turn finally of Hearthstone proportions where they can at some point go 1, 2, 3, 4. Vilefin into Hero Power, into Peacekeeper, into Megasaur. It may not be this turn. They may need a turn or two to set that up.
It's not this turn. This turn, there's a lot of pressure staring Ursi down. We're looking at 17 damage on the board. Curator will put a stop to some of it. I imagine Outdoor Peacekeeper will also come down this turn and put a stop to some of it. But
yeah.
Machine really is pushing the board. And these Corpse Flowers, doing a pretty fine job.
Yeah, I mean, you're showing the value they're going to get. They're only going to come back to life very occasionally, but that's all they need to do, because if it wasn't for these, look how much value Finland have managed to save up and get hold of. Bit by bit, because of that lay on hands, they've snuck in front. But the Corpse Flowers are saying otherwise.
Dragonfire Potion. There were a lot of spells still in Chile's deck here. Holy Novas, Shadow Visions, Dragonfire Potions, Power Word Shields. We still haven't seen Free from Amber. Maybe we were wrong the whole time. Maybe Medivh was in the deck without Free from Amber.
Yeah, just top of the curve.
Seems confusing.
Doesn't seem to... Yeah, it seems to be a conflicting message. Your Free from Amber is a way of getting your Medivh. You've just summoned 2 big minions in one turn. I would imagine it is in there.
Just weird that we haven't seen it yet.
It really is. But, you know, sometimes things bury themselves at the bottom of the deck and refuse to come out.
So, going back a couple of turns here, why do you think Chile's ultimate decision was to take the Potion of Madness?
I don't know. Presumably because Murloc things. There's going to always be 1/1s on the table. It's cheap for reviving Sherazin yet again.
Yep.
You know, reviving Sherazin once when there's 2 of them has been proved already to be good. Reviving it 2 or 3 times is probably pretty ridiculous. Now, Finland's still on 18. That's a lot of health you can use as a resource here. They could choose to, for instance, True Silver down the Sherazin.
Right.
And begin to spam some small Murlocs. The aim will be to have a Murloc army, and then you can either buff them with a Megasaur twice, hide them with the Megasaur if you get lucky on the stealth roll, for instance.
That's a good idea.
And then use the other one, and you've got Sunkeeper Tarim to make a huge army of 3/3s. These are all conditions that will be going through their heads as which one of these choices is the best way to win this game of Hearthstone.
I definitely like your idea of trying to hide them all with the Megasaur, then playing the second one, or Tarim and then the second one.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's so much pressure, again, on the board right now. It's only 8 damage, but because Ursi only has 18 health, and no heals in hand, he's running out of time. He's going to want to actually get rid of as much of this as possible.
Yeah, you're saying only 18. I'm thinking of it, he's still got 18. Priests aren't notorious for smashing you for 18 from nowhere. I know double Sherazin can do that, but it's slow. They come back to life. You see it. They've got half of an Equality Consecration combo in hand for another push. And yeah, they're just trying to build a board for this surprise. You can see Ursi concentrating incredibly hard. This isn't the face of a guy who thinks he's going to lose this game of Hearthstone. This is a guy who's trying to work out, right, let's not botch this. We've got a good chance here.
Potion of Madness may come into play here with Priest of the Feast and maybe both Binding Heals just to revive the Sherazin. How important at this stage do you think it is to bring these back to life? My opinion is that it's very important because pressure is a way of just stealing this game very soon.
Right, so that's something they can do. They need to be a little bit aware of the Equality Consecration. There are very few cards left in Finland's deck. So the Equality Consecration will be on the mind of Chile. What they will want to do is get in a situation where they can still revive the Sherazins after Equality Consecration.
Yep.
And then the 5/3s will live for a long time. I was going to say live forever, but that's not quite true.
So they may make the decision to just hold on to all of these cheap spells a little bit longer.
Yeah, all with that in mind. Force Finland to clear this up and then maybe revive the Sherazins, hopefully after an Equality Consecration.
I imagine that Chile are thinking a lot about that Lyra that they essentially wasted back on turn 6 or 7 and thinking, how good would that be right now?
Yeah, how good indeed. But how much did they need it to force this position to happen?
Sure.
That Lyra was a 3/5 body that had to be dealt with instead of the other 3/5 body at the time on the Priest of the Feast, I think it was at the time.
Yep.
Which means that Finland had to take care of 1 minion. Lyra didn't do Lyra things, but they may not even be in this position if they hadn't played that Lyra. It's hard to reconstruct until you look at the game again.
I completely agree with you. As it's time for some Murlocs to hit the board. Ursi not under nearly as much pressure as he was a couple of turns ago.
Attacking first here before playing the Megasaur in case they get Divine Shield, which would then be a really good protection against Dragonfire.
Or Stealth. I want to attack before Stealth too. Unfortunately, Ursi gets neither of those options.
Does get +3 health though.
Yeah, Poisonous not so great here. Liquid Membrane, maybe, but I agree with you. I think that the +3 health is by far the best option here.
Forces the Dragonfire Potion. The Death Rattle obviously on the Dinomancer, I want to say.
Dinomancer seems okay.
Sounds like a card that exists. Won't do anything. No cards were discarded by the Priest, so there's no Death Rattle there to speak of.
No. Not yet. You'd be surprised, though. Priest can do things.
Priest can indeed do things, although Elise has gone, Lyra's gone, so Priest can do less of the things that you are referencing right now. This might be a good time to use up the Dragonfire, but they're going to desperately try not to.
I really don't think there's all that much choice for Machine here. Looks like he's already starting to make the play, reducing that Rockpool Hunter's health down to 5. So the Dragonfire Potion will get rid of the entire board. Unfortunately for Chile, Ursi, he's got a lot of stamina this game. He just keeps fighting back.
He does, but he's running out of fight if he's not careful. He's played very well. The whole team presumably played very, very well here for Finland to even be in this. They looked out of it dead and buried a few times, but it looks like if they end up losing, it will be because they run out of cards, not because they didn't get into the game. And that's kind of the same thing, but
yeah.
They have forced Machine time and time again to have to deal with stuff. And Machine is now out of board clears. And this is not over yet.
It's not. Next turn may be the final. Okay, time to activate both Sherazans. Dump my hand turn.
Maybe?
It might be necessary. Stonehill Defender once again not picking up a single Paladin Legendary. This may be the first game that we've seen both come down and neither grant something big.
Right, and there was no getaway code off either Hydrologist either, so the infinite value meme has not been real at all in this game.
Bad discovers going on from Ursi.
I mean, they haven't been terrible. The Mastodon really helped him to get rid of stuff.
It stuck around for a while.
But you're right, he hasn't had the dreams of...
And the Redemption also actually forced Machine and Team Chile to make a sudden, disappointing play.
Yeah, it seemed like a mistake again. I would need to check through, but it did feel like getting rid of that second Shadow Word Death made things really awkward for Chile, and is one of the reasons why Finland is still here.
Finland, of course, as we discussed earlier, a team very used to communicating with each other. Part of this game, if it is taken by Ursi, could even be attributed just down to that. Finland's communication were on point. They never had to face the rope. They never had to make very, very fast last-minute plays.
And Chile have definitely struggled in that regard.
They have.
Whether that was a mistake or not with the Shadow Word Deaths, I'm not going to go into because I'm not sure. I feel like it was.
I think it was.
But obviously, a few times they have been very close to the wire and had effects still to pop up, and you never want to be in the position where you're on the rope and you're saying, well, what's this random effect that we haven't checked yet? You need to use some of your time to play the game after the random effects have popped. A whole bunch of nothing that turn, again saving all of their cheap spells for that one turn for later.
Chile must be spending a lot of time discussing these dead cards in the hand, asking each other, asking themselves, when is time? When is go time? Powered Shield will definitely help. Just getting through to those last few cards of the deck. The more time goes on, the more I am actually starting to doubt this Free from Amber.
Yeah, and Finland still have resources, and we know full well there are no more Shadow Word Deaths. So Spike Ridge Steed, for instance, here on a 3/6, creating a 5/12 minion that has no Shadow Word Deaths to face.
Right.
They can't get a Shadow Word Death, I don't think.
No.
Lyra has gone, the pack has gone.
There's no deaths in the deck.
The deaths have gone.
So
it seems like it's going to be difficult to create a Shadow Word Death. I feel like you just Spike Ridge something out of range here and start hitting a whole bunch of face.
Suddenly, after a long game where the tide was initially in Ursi's favour, the tide got turned. Now the tide seems to have turned back again.
He wants to play, I don't think he's 100% sure what on. If you play it on one of the smaller minis, have both panes gone as well? I'm going to give them credit for having counted that both panes have gone, but I'm not so sure.
Honestly, we're at the point in the game where I don't remember.
We've been counting a lot of the cards here, guys, but sometimes when there's only two of you and you're watching both sides, there's the pain. So that's one of the spike speeds can be dealt with. If there was a 5/12 on the board, that would be much harder to deal with.
Yeah, a little bit confusing. You'd think that Ursi may have done what you said, realised both Shadow Word Deaths are gone. How do they deal with that? I guess instead opting to go as wide as possible.
Yeah,
trying to make Sunkeeper time as valuable as possible.
That's definitely a card you're going to have to use if you're going to win this game when you are down to very few cards and a hero power that makes dudes.
Machine has to activate the Shadows and Seeds this turn, I think. Tar Creeper, followed by Powered Shield, followed by Shadow Word Pain.
I think they just feel they lose if they activate them. Because they're just expecting a quality consecration, game over.
Right.
I think that's the position here that they're finding themselves. They're desperately trying to get the equality consecration to be used a different way.
Okay.
But maybe they've run out of ways to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a pretty good target for Power Shield. Shadow Visions. Time is running out, though. Machine, Chile in this position again, having to rush that Discover. Was it actually maybe the only option? I didn't see what the Discovers were.
I didn't see what they were.
It was picked so fast.
Holy Nova, I don't think was the only option, but I must admit I can't swear to that. And they did activate the Sherazins, but they've done it in such a way that they could possibly activate them again later on. Right, and they're going to get the news that there is no consecration, but these can be dealt with pretty easily on board. Again, remembering Finland on 15 health. They've seen every card from the pack, I think, so they're not going to be scared of a random damage card, I don't think.
I don't mind Sunkeeper Tarim here. Just maybe Hero Power, Sunkeeper Tarim, trade in.
I think you wait one more time because they can see that to activate these Sherazins, it might be once more in the whole game. And if you Tarim after the Sherazins have gone, you could just make a whole bunch of value. I think you save everything as long as you dare. I might be wrong, I mean, it's a lot of stuff.
Okay. Well, alternatively, the Murloc War Leaders would buff up the Murlocs,
sure.
make them strong enough to deal with the Corpus Makers. It's just a matter of dealing with.
It might well be time. I just feel that Finland have been very, very, very careful with resources the whole game, and they may just push their luck one more time.
Oh,
no, they're going for it. They do still have the Megasaur if this goes wrong. So,
was it necessary to hit the weapon in there? Pretty certain that wasn't necessary.
I'll go with you on that one.
He hit in the weapon, then made the trade, but if he played Sunkeeper, he could have just made the trade. He just wasted the
Right, so yeah, the weapon was indeed not necessary there. Unless you're missing a buff effect, but I think you're right.
Unless I'm missing something horrific, that was just a mistake.
Yeah, it looks like it probably was.
It's been a long game. There's a lot of discussion going on here.
And there was always the option as well to play the War Leader, maybe it goes into 4/4s, which would survive the 3/3s. But you know there's a Holy Nova left, so that's sort of going to just waste the War Leader in some regards.
Now Finland are going to have to win this soon, or win this not at all. They're running out of cards. Machine has at least a couple more cards left in the deck.
And this is where only having 3 players, not 4, is a disadvantage. Even if only 3 are communicating, your 4th is the counter. He might be the guy writing down every single card and say, okay, these are the cards we think are remaining.
Sure.
You know, Dan says there's a Free from Amber remaining, maybe. There's a Holy Nova almost certainly left. There isn't a Dragonfire, there isn't a Death. Make your decisions based around that. And they're trying to keep enough resources back for one more push if this goes wrong, which is playing around that Holy Nova to a large degree. Or double Holy Nova if the Radiant Elemental comes down.
Double Holy Nova is surprisingly okay in this situation. Deals with everything except Tarim. In fact, Radiant, double Holy Nova.
And a thing. Yeah,
plus a thing, doesn't matter what. In fact, let's see. Radiant, Potion of Madness to...
Steal Wicker Flame.
Yeah, you have to play the Holy Nova. So it's Radiant, Holy Nova, Potion of Madness, trade it in Holy Nova.
And then you end up, your opponent has a 3/1.
Yep.
And you have 2 5/3s.
Yep. I like that a lot.
They're probably looking for a way where the 3/1 doesn't happen because it kills a 5/3, but I don't think they're going to find a way. Oh, you have also the Elemental is also on the board in that scenario.
That's true. Doesn't look like Chile are going with it, though. They're going to hold on for one more turn. Try and get even more value out of these Holy Novas.
Yeah, well, this is... I mean, the 2 Holy Novas will kill Megasaurs. They will kill War Leaders.
Yeah.
What they won't do is kill Murlocs if they get buffed too large. That's it. All of the cards have gone. It's not a Consecration, so it's a Pyromancer, but they've been keeping the equality for the same deal.
Same difference, right?
Yeah.
Like it's same effect. Now, Potion of Madness not quite as strong in that combo.
Nor is the Holy Nova. It doesn't deal with 4/8s particularly well. And Finland have played this masterfully so far. Are they going to get rewarded, or is there something in Chile's deck that can help them out?
Potion of Madness.
Looking to me like Finland are going to sneak this win, and this has been a terrific game of Hearthstone if they do. They've been up against this the whole time, and they have managed every last card well, and they still have at least half a chance if somehow this board got cleared by keeping back the Megasaur and the War Leader.
It's been a great game of Hearthstone. It's been a long game of Hearthstone. I think it's been a tiring game of Hearthstone. Both players have made imperfect plays going through this. Machine fighting against the rope, probably down to the communication there, having to make some incredibly fast last-minute discover decisions. On the other side, Finland played it very well for the most part. They had a very awkward trade there when they played the Sunkeeper Tarim, hitting in the weapon for what looked like no reason whatsoever. They could have just made the trade. Right now, Ursi could have an additional True Silver champion. Would it make much of a difference? That's yet to be seen.
They've used their health total really well. They're still on 18, which was a number that looked scary at one point, but they managed to just not take any more damage for a very long time. Going for the final throws here for Machine to get the 5-3. If he managed to get everything going, I think he did. But...
Yep, well, there are two very happy plants on the board, so that looks good to me. Unfortunately, I don't think it's enough. Oh, is it enough?
It might well be close, because...
The Potion of Madness being able to take the Stagadon is actually relevant here, because if that's all that ends up on the board for Ursi, the Stagadon can then be stolen, attack Ursi in the face with fatigue damage as well. Machine might just get there.
Yeah, but Ursi's going to be able to play Megasaur, War Leader, and Hero Power. He has to decide first if he wants to Pyro Equality this turn.
Ooh.
He never wants to kill his home board, so that's why he's had to be careful here.
Let me think.
It's so difficult to know exactly how to go about this. Your Pyro Equality, if you don't use it now, you can never use it. But it might be right to never use it.
Yeah, he's not going with the equality, just dropping the Pyromancer, creating as wide a board as possible whilst holding on to the huge Murloc cards in his hand that can just end the game very soon.
And they're actually out of cards now, Chile, so this is the last card. It is free from Amber.
It is free from Amber!
Dan breathes a huge sigh of relief. I knew all along, of course.
I honestly was at the point where I'd accepted that they didn't run free from Amber. The fact that we hadn't seen it from a single Shadow Visions is very surprising. I guess if we had time earlier to see the Discover, we would have seen it there. But Machine had to pick very, very quickly. Now, Machine actually has a card with some value and a method to maybe win this game.
It's looking like he won't, but it is possible. Free from Amber, what could do it? 12-12s look pretty good here.
Unfortunately, equality still exists. Then again...
Yeah, equality is just the card that's going to win this if the 3-2 survives, and I don't see how the 3-2 ever dies.
Chile is... Oh, sorry, Machine is doing very good when it comes to fatigue, as opposed to Ursi, who's already taking 2 damage.
Yes and no. Now, Ursi, I think, can afford to just press the Hero Power button and attack for 5.
Yeah.
And say, okay, we know you've got free from Amber and a card. Maybe they don't know what the other card is. Maybe someone knows it's Potion. Depends how well they've countered. The way they've played this, they may not have had time to have countered because they've been so deep in thought, or maybe someone is counting. Either way, they'll know there's a free from Amber for sure. They'll be in your boots, whereas, well, maybe they haven't, but let's play as if they have.
I expect that Potion of Madness also came from a Shadow Visions. I've lost track. I've got to it.
Yeah.
But it's possible that even if they have been counting, they don't know what the second card is.
So maybe they play around double free from Amber as a worst case. No, they commit the Murloc War Lead. I mean, it's how you see it at this point, and they decide that they need to get on with it. But just making dudes is pretty good as well.
Quality is looking awkward now, though. If it turns out that it is something big that does need to be equalityed...
but how do they kill off the 1/1s? I mean, even if your minions are buffed with the War Leader, don't forget with the quality, so that helps a little bit.
Yeah, so if Ursi plays equality here, the 1/1 survives.
Yeah.
As a 1/1.
But yeah. Is that right? Am I doing that thing that people get wrong?
Just Siraj, Primordial Drake, Tortillion Primalist. Drake would be okay with the battle cry here. Heck, even Tortillion Primalist maybe would be the answer for Chile with the Pyroblast here. Machine going for a taunt minion above stats.
This is absolutely silly.
Ursi can just trade everything except the War Leader in, and then start spawning Murlocs. Or he can do this.
Yeah, now they've seen the free from Amber, they're a lot happier going all in.
Poisonous, looks good.
Poisonous looks good, but do you have to? Is it the best way? It's difficult to know what the best is here. Poisonous feels like it just wins the game. You've got to make sure, though, that your stuff does not die. They may even have somebody counting the race. So if for some reason everything died here, which they know it won't, do they win by making 1-1, then another 1-1, then another 1-1 against no cards? They probably still do.
This game is over. Ursi has a smile on his face. They've made it past the finish line. This is one of the first games in the last couple of days at least that's gone this far into fatigue, and what a game it has been.
Yeah, people sometimes say that fatigue games are resident sleeper. This one definitely was not.
Definitely
an
not.
absolute masterclass put on by Finland here in how to use your cards the most efficient way possible, playing around all the threats they could think of, and I think they drew badly that game and still won the game. And I don't think Chile played particularly badly. They were a little bit loose with their Lyra, but they did get some tempo from that Lyra. Chile just falling short, though, and it goes to 1 game all in a marathon game of Hearthstone.
Despite the couple of technical errors that we mentioned, you're absolutely right. The kind of long-term plan for both players was on top form. I mean, if one player is playing badly, the game doesn't go to fatigue. The other one just wins.
Right. And yeah, finding a way there. Again, not only to win, but to win with the Megasaur and the War Leader as bonuses at the end. They ended up using it to speed it up. But if there'd been one more clear somehow from Chile, Finland still had another wave of Murlocs to come. And fantastic use of the hero power resource as well. Remember, they missed their turn 8 completely because of the Doomsayer played by Chile, which set up Medivh. And all the way from that point onwards, Finland were up against it.
Now, Ursi really held on to that War Leader. It's a card that you tend to see in the Paladin played fairly early, but as you say, in that game, it was there as a last-minute surprise. Next up, we've got Warrior versus Paladin, so I think we should get comfortable for another long one.
Let's do this, let's just... Yeah, it's going to possibly go all the way again if it's a quest, because Quest Warrior versus Paladin is a very, very long match sometimes and can come down, as we discussed yesterday, to the use of Brawl. Assuming it's a Quest Warrior, same thing that we've said all day long. It might just be Pirates. They might just hit you in the face and you die.
Yeah. It can be very quick on both sides. Could just be the very aggressive part. We could have a full-on aggro matchup coming up. It's impossible to know.
The Quest Warrior Mirror is one of my least favourite games. Quest Warrior versus Mid-Range Paladin, however, is one of my most favourite matchups. It is a very, very technical matchup. It's a bit boring at the start. When you get to those turns like, do we brawl now? Do we complete the quest now? And the Paladin's thinking, do we commit one more card? It becomes a really interesting matchup.
Again,
how Finland just played that, I would like to see another game like that.
Again, very similar to the Control Warrior versus Mid-Range Shaman matchup of old. When do we play the Brawl? How wide does our board go? It's a similar deal, and that's because the Paladin Hero Power is actually kind of similar to the Shaman Hero Power.
Yeah, they're really, really similar. They do the same thing. When I play Shaman, they do exactly the same thing. They just make 1/1s all the time.
Wow, that's quite a talent you got there, Neil.
I know. I don't know why.
All right, in a moment we are going to start, but just a reminder, the score is 1-1 after what has been a very long, very intense series so far. Chile up with the Paladin next versus Finland with the Warrior. Finland held a very strong performance with their Paladin last game.
Right.
Paladin has been performing very well in general over the last few weeks. One of the classes, actually, that people thought was going to be weakest after Ngoro. People looked at the quest, decided it's not good enough, decided Sunkeeper Tarim isn't good enough. Who'd have thought that?
Yeah, I think people knew it was good, but they looked, like you say, everyone looked at all the quest cards and said, okay, so the best class is obviously Hunter, and the worst class is obviously Paladin. Yeah. We're good at this, those people who talk about the game.
Hunter Quest is really, really good. I'm looking forward to those pro players' reviews where they then go back and re-review their original review.
I was silly. I was very silly. Oh my goodness, how silly am I?
It's a mistake that we make every single expansion. Remember when Dr. Boom was supposed to be a bad card and Trogzor, the Earthinator, was going to be king of the 7-mana slot?
Trogzor.
Didn't quite work out that well, did it?
I don't know. I played Trogzor for a while.
Yeah?
Then I crafted Dr. Boom.
Ah, right.
I realised how silly I was. Okay. Very aggressive-looking Paladin versus a very aggressive-looking Warrior. See how this one works out. And there's a Finger. And yeah, this is going to be a bit quicker than the last game.
Yeah, we don't need to get comfortable after all. I know how important comfort is to you, Neil,
Wow.
in your old age.
Yeah. Nurse. Anyway, Finland setting up with the Nazos first mate, but no 2-drop to go with it. And Paladin could go off to a flying start here with Finger the flying starter.
Finger the flying starter. Sure. Topo Pablo. Topo Pablo. Yeah, that is right. Topo Pablo with a pretty strong start here. 2 1-drops with the coin, 2-drop, and as you said earlier, Finger. Pretty good card in this, well, in any matchup. It's a great swing card. Not quite as strong in these decks which contain more Murlocs than just the Bluegill Warrior and the Murloc War Leader.
Wow.
Still, it's good at putting extra bodies on the board. And Wampy, not so happy with his hand.
Yeah, I mean, how often does your Pirate Warrior do nothing on turn 2 at all? Like, this is incredible. It's almost impossible for this to happen.
It's not doing nothing. It's going to armor up.
Yep,
Not
winning
super right.
31 to 28. I'm sure they're delighted with that word of comfort. And meanwhile, Chile just going to be able to curve through nicely. And the chances are they draw more things on curve because that's just what's left in their deck is going to be all the 3s and 4s here.
Hydrologist. There's the getaway code.
And
So
there's also Noble Sacrifice, which can be really useful in those later turns against Pirates when they start making Arcanite Reapers and Leroy Jenkins.
Right.
He's bigger than normal is the Noble Sacrifice in this one.
Finland would have loved the getaway Kodo earlier.
Right.
That would have been the top pick. They never got it. However, Topo Pablo agreeing with you against a Pirate Warrior. You need to stop every little bit of damage you can.
Right. This is a good turn, good pickup for Wampy. Well, good turn for Wampy now. He's going to be able to finally get these Corsairs into a range where they can come down both next turn if he wants. And that's going to present a problem for the Murloc deck. But the Murloc deck definitely got plenty going on of its own here.
Now, difficult decisions this turn. Coin True Silver Champion to get rid of the 3-4 is an option. Saving the coin for next turn and playing it with Finger, also an option.
Yep.
Grimscale Chum, still there as an option, alongside Bluegill Warrior, though that turn doesn't seem quite as strong.
Yeah, it's looking a little awkward suddenly. They know that Wampy's hand is full of 3s and 4s. Actually, we know it's full of 3s and 2s. But
now it is.
He missed turn 2, and there are not that many cards that you can play, that you can't play. So the True Silver will not only kill the Frothing Berserker, but would kill... Sorry, not only kill the cultist, but would kill a Frothing Berserker or another cultist, a Naga Corsair. So playing the True Silver to kill this is really putting them in good stead in their mind for the next turn. But they're going to be disappointed with likely visiting this double Corsair.
Double Corsair, Frothing and Southsea deck. And well, you don't want to play the Frothing now, absolutely not, of course. True Silver Champion would just eat it up. But you're right, Double Corsair, incredibly strong here, putting 2 small to medium-sized bodies on the board, but it's enough to put a stop to everything that Topo Pablo has right now.
Actually playing the 1 Corsair and making a 4-3, so there's 1 extra point of damage on the board for next turn, and then he can still play the other Corsair to defend the Frothing. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay. Another True Silver. How much damage do they think they can eat? Don't forget, the True Silver does heal you for 2 when it attacks, and so it is an efficient way of dealing with these minions, but at some point the Murlocs does have to make its own attacks. Remember, it does have the Spike-Ridge Steed, so they may feel that they're on the defensive here, Chile, and that is what they wanted to hit, and now they can make some really good clears. Will they take the free kill, or will they heal themselves for 4 by killing the Bloodsail? Pretty much have to kill the Bloodsail, I feel, just because the Murloc would die to the Warrior weapon next turn, and now suddenly Wampy is in a bit of a spot again.
Topo Pablo is in a great position for controlling the board here. He can play Finger next turn, and actually he's then got the guaranteed Spike-Ridge Steed on turn 6.
An invisible Murloc on a horse that is a dinosaur.
Probably not going to want to stay invisible. He wants to be able to put that taunt up, and that's going to cause a bit of a headache for Wampy.
Yeah. I don't want to be hit by an invisible Murloc on a horse with a dinosaur. Dino horse.
Horse with a dinosaur.
Why not? Sure, that's where
Okay.
we're going with this. Okay, so this is 1P's last huge turn, and then things are going to start getting pretty ugly for him.
Okay. Frothing Berserker, Korkron Elite. He's going to go with the Frothing Berserker, putting up the Dread Corsair to protect the Frothing Berserker.
And at this point, you might as well make the trade because it buffs your Frothing by 2.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the weapon. That's
Yeah,
okay.
either's fine.
So, 1P doing the best he can to protect the Frothing Berserker. Finley is going to come down. Not Finley. Finley's the old one. Finger is going to come down.
Finger's brother.
And cause a bit of a problem for 1P. 1P gets a few free hits in here. Blood Cell Cultist, not a bad draw, allowing this weapon to squeeze out some extra value.
Yeah, and there's going to be a pretty big Frothing next turn as well. I think that Finger and the Steed are looking to probably die, but they're going to have to die and then some, because this is going to be a turning point in this game. Finger's going to kill the 3/3, summon 2 Murlocs, and what they are might make all the difference. Unless he can find something even more spectacular. So, another play here that he could do. You can play the Bluegill Warrior, True Silver down the Corsair, and then trade the Bluegill and your Finger, which will die, into the Frothing, which will probably lose you the game. But it does remove a lot of the threats and put you in a win position. I think you have to play the Spike Ridge Steed. I'm just looking for other options that may be discussed.
So Steed, then trade, then hope you get a War Leader.
Yeah,
just to make the Finger a little bit stronger, a little bit more resilient.
Yeah, the Finger is going to die. The danger is that this Frothing, everything else from Finland plows through the Spike Ridge Steed, and then the Frothing Berserker hits him in the face for the 11 remaining, or whatever that turns out to be. So it's actually a difficult turn. You've got to do the numbers and know your Murlocs very well.
Yeah, True Silver Champion actually going with your play by the looks of it. Not going to play the Bluegill.
Yeah, they're going to see what comes off the Finger first.
This is risky.
The Bluegill might be buffed from a War Leader. This is the better play. If this War Leader comes here, they can play the Bluegill if they have the time.
No War Leader! It hasn't happened, and now Noble Sacrifice comes down.
It shouldn't be enough. 1P is a very, very experienced Hearthstone player.
After what looked like such a great start for Topo Pablo, the Frothing Berserker getting buffed and buffed and buffed some more, gets through, hits Chile in the face.
And Chile obviously felt the Spike Ridge Steed. They either felt or calculated that it wasn't enough. If they had got the War Leader there, they would have been able to play their Bluegill, trade into the Frothing and win the game. There were 2 War Leaders left. There were probably quite a few other Murlocs left. But yeah, 1P wasn't expecting to win that one. He doesn't know about the Spike Ridge Steed, so he will be even more surprised when he checks that VOD.
Yeah, Spike Ridge Steed could have made all of the difference, but it wasn't quite enough against the Frothing Berserker. Imagine 1P being able to trade all of his minions into the Steed, get rid of it, get rid of the Staggadon. How much attack would the Frothing Berserker have had then?
All of the attack.
50? Something like that?
Yeah, I'm just trusting that Chile worked it out because it's a lot of numbers and I've only got this many fingers.
It is.
And I've got to keep my shoes on.
Right, well, Finland now taking their second win. Gonna pass the torch back to Ursi, who of course is filling in for Kufton. Kufton wasn't able to make it today, but he let us know a few days ago.
Right.
And Ursi stepped forward. He's going to be playing the Shaman next versus Saitama's Mage.
Yep, and Shaman versus Mage is something, oddly enough, we haven't seen that much of. But one thing's for sure, I think every single Mage we have seen has been Control Mage.
Right, it has. Well, Control Mage, I was having a conversation about this earlier.
Okay.
People are saying they don't like Control Mage. People are saying apparently Discover Mage, apparently Gunther Mage, apparently...
Name it after the creator is always good.
Apparently Chip and Destroy Mage, or Chip and Finish Off Your Opponent Mage, or Mage Mage.
Mage.
But Control Mage, people are saying it doesn't really control.
Does it not?
That's what Soda was saying. And
Okay, I'm happy with that. If Soto says that, he'll tell me off if I say something different. So Gunther Mage it is.
I thought that'd convince you.
I'm always happy to defer to people who bully me.
I can just, if I ever disagree with you on anything, I'm just going to say, yeah, Soda said it.
Okay, sure. That will work for a while.
This time legitimately, by the way.
Yeah, but that is definitely, if people name it after the creator, I'm always good with that. So Gunther Mage it is.
Okay, well, versus Shaman. Now, we've seen a lot of slow Shaman, but we've also seen very fast Shaman today. me and Guskin earlier, we had one of those horrible shaman that brought back memories from previous expansions where Flame Tongue into Deckhand and Patches and nasty things going on there with
Well,
a lot
they're
of
seven
force damage.
sevens.
They weren't actually 7/7s. But
Okay, I can handle this.
7/7 things.
We saw 7/7s yesterday, though, or I think.
We saw a lot of big, heavy shaman decks yesterday.
Yeah, we really
saw
did. Wall Shaman basically was there.
Big Jade Shaman, Wall Shaman, N'Zoth Shaman. We've seen all sorts. I feel like we haven't seen much, just regular Elemental Shaman.
Yeah, we saw a little bit earlier in game one,
Yeah.
match one today, but yeah, you're right, we haven't seen so much. I feel that people have found Elemental Shaman to be a little bit linear. When you've got a team of 4 really good Hearthstone players, and the answer is, yeah, play turn 1 with your 1-drop, play turn 2. You're not using their skill to its maximum advantage, unless the skill is in getting the right matchups and using that to fill a gap in your lineup. If you're playing a deck that's fairly 1, 2, 3, 4, there aren't many left anymore, but the Shaman deck's pretty much one of them, because if you break the elemental chain, the deck does this and just collapses. It's probably about the most linear deck there is right now, and if you've got 4 really good Hearthstone players, you're not using that collective mind very well.
It's a linear deck, but there's so many different variations of it. As we can see here, it is an Elemental Shaman, and it's a Freeze Mage. We actually saw a Freeze Mage. Dan and I saw a Freeze Mage earlier in the previous series.
Okay.
Yesterday was the day of the Gunther Mage. Today is the day of the Freeze Mage, as it happens, making its grand return. And quite rightly so, still an incredibly strong deck.
Novice Engineer, big giveaway for Freeze Mage here, and Doomsayer helps as well. So, Freeze Mage, for those who don't know, is there anyone who doesn't know? There's bound to be. There's lots of people joining us all the time. Basically, don't let your opponent hit you by freezing their stuff. Put an Alex Strage in their face to take them down to 15, and then kill them over 2 turns with your ice block up so you can't die in the meantime. Of course, Kalimos heals face for 12. Hot Spring Guardian heals face or anything, but usually face in this matchup for 3. And there may even be like water speakers and stuff like that to heal for other amounts. So the Freeze Mage has to tread very delicately.
I like to say this is a very strong matchup for the Shaman, actually, just because of the sheer amount of healing. Back in the old days, where Freeze Mage could just kill its opponent in 1 turn with Evolved Kobolds and Emperor Thorisans and Ice Lances, maybe back then the Freeze Mage would be fine against the Shaman and just save up all of their things and then beat the Shaman in 1 turn. Nowadays, that's not an option for the Mage. In fact, it's a little bit scary to think about how insane that deck would be if it still had those old tools.
Yeah, and I think one thing that happened as well when they had the Mad Scientist and had it taken away, Laughing in particular, but you know, other players, George C., several of the Ukrainian players and Russian players, sort of worked out how to play Freeze Mage the hard way, and now they've been given the tools back, but not quite as more powerful. It's like, oh, this is easy now. Yeah, we've learned to do it the hard way, and suddenly some of these cards are almost too powerful for us.
Freeze Mage players are incredibly dedicated to the class, and they are going to make sure they can adapt. Not with the adapt mechanic.
Make your Doomsayer a 0-10, guys.
But in their own way, they're going to adapt.
I wonder if that joke's ever going to get old.
I hope so.
I don't think so. I don't know anything about getting old. And so, Ursi here, probably just trade into the Novice, get rid of it. You don't like taking chip damage because it messes up your healing from your Guardians later. You want to heal your minions, you might have to heal your face, that's bad. Yeah. And they're going to start drawing cards of their own.
So,
this is a fantastic hand, by the way, for Finland.
Yeah, putting down the Manatide Totem early as well guarantees that they're going to start drawing more of their heals as soon as possible. And it's the heals that they need. The cards like Jinyu Water Speaker, the second Hot Spring Guardian, etc., etc. The Jade package is obviously in Ursi's deck there. Yep. Jade Spirit sitting there. And we saw earlier the Jade Druid versus Freeze Mage was very, very favored for the Jade Druid at the end of the day. Same thing is almost guaranteed to be said for the Jade Shaman versus Freeze Mage, as long as there is enough healing in the deck.
And I've made this point more than once today as well. When you draw your early game in the early game, you draw your late game in the late game, and that is absolutely perfect for this sort of situation.
So Timer discussing with his teammates here. What is this term? Goes for the Doomsayer. You have to wonder, maybe Ursi hexes this.
So the other hex targets in the deck, Archmage Antonidas.
Alex Strasser.
Alex Strasser. not much
Not
else.
much else. And you don't even need to hex Alexstrasza most of the time. Most of the time, by the time Alexstrasza comes down, you have a board to deal with it. I think that the card draw from this Manatide Totem is so valuable. If the Doomsayer is the best way Saitama can deal with it, I'd want to keep it alive.
And picking up Aya may convince them to do it as well, because now they've got the 4-drop in the Jade, they've got Aya, which would be a real pain to deal with on 6. They would love to pick up another Jade Spirit, or Jade Lightning, something to just keep those Jades coming on turn 5, and that may convince them to keep the Manatide alive even more.
Hex coming down, just as we thought. Firefly going to go ahead, get rid of that frog.
Yeah, that'll do. Servant of Kalimos, it's not going to be able to be activated the easy way, but they're not going to hurry. I imagine, they're going to have good choices after Finland next turn. They can Jade Spirit to start the Jade train going, or they can use up one of their Hot Spring Guardians to make sure the Servant gets going. But I think we'll see the Jade Spirit.
Volcano coming down again. Very popular card now in these more control-y based Shaman decks, as we saw a lot of volcanoes blowing up yesterday.
Yeah, and some of those were interesting. The time we saw it was against another control Shaman, where it turned out that they're not so good in the mirror match when you've both got 8 health minions, but they still found ways to use it, even though it didn't look particularly great. They found ways to wrangle it so it was good.
Right. It finds a way. It generally finds a way. Whether that's Maelstrom Portal first to weaken the board, maybe not so much against Freeze Mage, which isn't going to be playing as many minions that you actually want to deal with. You expect the Shaman will have board control most of the time.
An Igneous Elemental here just to help out with the continuousness of the Elemental train, and that means that no point will Finland ever miss the chance to have an Elemental if they want to go that way. But they seem to be going with the Jade package here, and the next pickup will be crucial to decide which way they want to go with this deck.
No Servant of Kalimos being activated this turn, unfortunately. This may be an opportunity for Ursi to drop Igneous Elemental and Totem up. Hot Spring Guardians would be a huge waste. Don't want to waste the healing against Freeze Mage. Maelstrom Portal, that seems good too. I don't know when this card is going to pick up more value against a Freeze Mage. Use it now, trade in the Jade Spirit, and continue developing a board.
Yeah, let's see what they pick up off the Maelstrom Portal. We did see yesterday, for instance, Priest of the Feast, and obviously Priest of the Feast is better healing than Hot Spring Guardian, but one team elected not to play it on turn 4 as their only thing to do, just because it's so powerful for healing later after Alexstrasza when you get hit for 15 damage out of the blue sky. And so, yeah, keeping the Hot Spring Guardians until the last possible moment is very sensible.
Exactly. And Servant of Kalimos has the ability, of course, to grab even more healing in the form of another Hot Springs Guardian, or more vitally, Kalimos himself.
Right, and this is where this Igneous Elemental is so important. It's very hard to keep freezing this without eventually killing it and giving your opponents even more elementals with which to... If you just drop a 1-drop elemental every turn, you can choose when to go for your Servant of Kalimos, as obviously next turn you'd really like to play your Aya first.
Yeah. Now tell me, Neil, how does Saitama win this game? What is the strategy for the Freeze Mage in this matchup? He is sitting there with Alexstrasza in his hand already. Do you think he has to play that as soon as possible and just start smacking the face with all of his bow?
Yeah, I mean, if he can just keep freezing as per the title, take some damage in the face because you've got 29 health to work with, and invariably that does go to 0. You just want to make it take its time getting there, and then play Alexstrasza with the block up, and try and maybe get some hits in for 2 damage. Maybe get a hit in from Alexstrasza. You've seen a Hex go on your Doomsayer.
Yeah.
And if you can get all that together, you can definitely win this as the Freeze Mage. And maybe sometimes there is the word hope, which is hope your opponent doesn't have too much healing in their hand.
And in a Shaman deck, or against a Shaman deck, I should say, that hope often doesn't come to any fruition.
It doesn't, but you can still... There is a little bit of wiggle room, especially some people play 2 Pyroblast now. Some play an Antonidas. There's usually a secondary chance that you have. It's not...
Yep.
Your primary chance is to do the Alexstrasza stuff we've talked about. Your secondary chance is, okay, they healed, but they wasted a whole turn healing. They're putting their 7/7 down against my 8/8. I'm going to hit them in the face for 8, which is half of the... Well, more than half of the 12 gone, and then Pyroblast them again in a couple of turns' time.
There's also the chance for Primordial Glyph to do some pretty incredible things. Grabbing Kabbalist tomes, which could then grab even more value.
In fact, we've seen a novice engineer, and that often points to the second Pyroblast version.
Okay.
People play Loot Hoarder if they're stealing how Laughing's deck is built. Some people have gone with the double novice engineer, double pyro. That is definitely an option in this deck.
Now, second time in the last couple of days, we've seen Spirit Echo in a Shaman.
Yeah, we saw Spirit Echo yesterday. We saw it picked up to... No, we saw the other one picked up today with Leroy Jenkins. So, yeah.
That was in a Rogue deck, though.
That was the
Sudden
other
Genesis coming from a Rogue.
But, yeah, so Spirit Echo is just a really good card. We likened it yesterday to replacing Bronze Beard with these Jades. It basically does the same job.
I wonder what Ursi's top targets with Spirit Echo are. Aya seems good, although he's not hurrying to play it now. I can't help but wonder if he wants to hit one of the healing cards with it, or even a Servant of Calamos.
Yeah, Aya is a very, very good choice just because she will get injured with Blizzard, and it's unlikely that she gets pinged because then the Jade comes to life and isn't frozen and hits you in the face.
Yep.
But like you say, the healing cards would be ideal, but setting them off isn't the easy bit. So they will be trying to get the healing most likely, but if you can get an Aya, then sure.
Spirit Echo, for those of you that haven't seen the card yet, it did pop up yesterday, but it is one of the less common cards in the Un'Goro expansion so far. That might change soon. But Spirit Echo gives all of your minions Death Rattle, return them to your hand, which is why we're thinking that Ursi may want to use this on a healing card so that they can just then play it again later.
Right, there's the Antonidas, by the way, which will often mean there's only one Pyroblast because they're kind of interchangeable. You just want an extra bit of damage in your deck, so you play one or the other.
Yep.
Still possible to be both, but I feel now that it probably is a one Pyroblast build. The reason I'm talking about that is because it's important. It's 10 damage, and 10 damage against a deck that has 12 healing is quite a chunk.
It is a chunk. It is a large chunk. And it's going to be time for Chile to soon start dealing these chunks of damage, starting with the Alexstrasza.
Devolve will protect against the Doomsayer, so it's not completely and utterly useless. Let's see what comes from this. Alakir is probably the pick. It is actual damage, it's direct damage from hand, which the deck lacks.
Direct damage is good, but no healing is bad, because that's almost definitely what you want against free.
Yeah, almost certainly. It will be the second prize.
Mass healing. Calamos heal for 12. That's so devastating against a freeze mage.
I wonder if they will try to get the Spirit Echo up on the Servant of Calamos to have another dig at that later.
Yeah, problem is there's maybe too many cards on the board here. You're going to not get all of them. They'd return to your hand in the order that they were played, so if Flame Strike came down, you actually wouldn't get the Calamos back.
Right.
Your hand would be too full by the time it tried to enter your hand.
So playing the Novice Engineer is a tech choice. It means you favour the chip damage a little less, but you favour the card in your immediate hand a little more.
Sure.
And it's been a debate for many months. I know that when a lot of people in EU were playing Loot Hoarder, even like 12 months ago, many people in China were playing Novice Engineer.
Right.
You could almost the point where you could recognise at one point which region somebody was from by what their tech choice was, and neither was right or wrong. It was just, I mean, one was right or wrong, but no one knows which one.
No one knows.
It was such a close call that it was just a matter of taste and how your deck was exactly constructed.
There you go. There's the 5-mana Flame Strike coming down with Blood Mage Thanos, getting rid of everything except the 3/3 Jade Golem. But
5-mana Flame Strike for 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very strong. Ursi, now though, with less of a board, getting a much better chance of using the Spirit Echo. He may just decide to play Servant of Calamos and Spirit Echo. Then again, his hand is still going to be too full. I don't think he can make those plays.
I assume they will save the Devolve for the second Doomsayer, but they may deny a card here by playing it. So they've at least got to discuss that situation.
Yep.
For the top players, that'll be a fairly easy choice, of course, but they'll probably feel the Freeze Mage has got enough cards already. There's no real point denying it.
Okay, Ursi got a heal this time, but not the one he wanted.
But he took it very quickly because there's a lot of this turn left to go.
Yeah, well, heal 3 is better than heal nothing, but heal 12 is better than heal 3.
Sure. Yeah, heal 3 could be very relevant with Freeze Mage, only having limited attack damage, limited damage available to it.
Yeah,
some words
there's a finite amount of damage, unless Antonidas lives forever. There is a finite amount of damage. And Ursi, also, he has a finite amount of healing, but his total health should, in most cases, exceed the total amount of damage from the other side of the board.
Yeah, especially when he's managing to put on the pressure, and there aren't infinite freezes either in Freeze Mage. There's quite a few, but by no means is it infinite.
No, if it was infinite, Freeze Mage would be even more frustrating to play against.
Infinitely frozen in time and space.
Hunter wouldn't complain too much.
Hunter always complains. That's what they do.
Medivh's Valet sitting there in the end of Saitama's hand.
Can clear the board?
Thinking he doesn't do that much.
I mean, you want to Valet face, but you can clear the board, just Valet the 4-5, ping the 3-3, Blizzard, but I don't necessarily like it. I think you want to put the 3 into the face.
I like this a lot. Now is the time to play Alexstrasza. Unless there's a Bloodlust, your Ice Block isn't getting popped now anyway. I don't think you expect there to be a Bloodlust. Most of the time in these slow control Shaman decks,
So
there isn't.
how close is this to being over? There's not that much healing in hand. There is 6. Your opponent, they have Archmage Antonidas and Ice Block in hand. So if the block gets procced on 23, by the way, then yeah, this could just be over. Difficult with the lack of healing. Obviously, Chile will be expecting a Kalimos to come down.
Ooh.
We're halfway through the game at least, and they've had 2 discovers.
Spirit Echo, before trading in Servant of Kalimos, then allows Ursi to play Kalimos again. Or Spirit Echo now means that he'd get all of the healing back.
Yep, looking like that's where he's going.
I think you trade in the cheaper minions first, then Spirit Echo, and then you have an extra chance to get an extra Kalimos, and then you also get the 2 Hot Spring Guardians back, assuming that they get destroyed at some point.
Finland's precision play has been very, very good in this match.
Yeah.
Forgetting the one true silver slip, their precision play, their technical aspects have been incredibly good. Just the little things like trading in a minion with 15 seconds to go so you don't get a flame elemental back. Yes, it's obvious when you're sat at home watching it, but when you're there talking, you've got 2 people in your ear saying, do this, do that, do that, and you've got to not panic.
Everyone, it doesn't matter who, makes mistakes when they play Hearthstone.
Meanwhile, though, this is looking grim for them. They haven't got enough healing to get out of this. And
the Spirit Echo setup was nice, but it doesn't look like it was fast enough. 12, 13 damage ready to go in Chile's hand right now.
So Servant of Kalimos into heal, if they know how much they've got to heal for, but they don't.
So it has to be Hot Springs Guardian. I think that's the only card they can get from Servant
But if
of
they get
Kalimos.
offered Kalimos, do they take it?
Yes, maybe. 11 health.
Probably not, because double fireball kills you.
You don't. I mean,
And 14 double fireball, you're safe. So
take it if you don't get offered Hot Springs Guardian. But if you get offered Hot Springs Guardian, you absolutely have to take that card.
yeah, absolutely great play from Chile here.
Oh, I love this.
Making them extra 3 health.
This is such a smart play from Ursi.
Absolutely all in on the defense play here, but it's not going to be enough, I don't think. Is it?
Right,
6.
It's 1 off lethal this time.
1 off lethal, yeah.
Let's see what.
They've still got to proc the block. Ursi playing this terrifically well.
That could end the game if it gets a fireball or another frostbolt.
See what they do get.
No such thing in this hand. It would have been 15 damage with another frostbolt or fireball.
So now what do? You know your opponents are desperate by that last play.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have just dropped Kalimos if they could, though, I think. Elementals are active, because we were talking about playing Servant of Kalimos. I think Elementals are active. I may be incorrect. Assuming that is true, Archmage into Frostbolt opponent's face looks tempting.
At the same time, that allows you to trade. That allows Ursi to trade in Hot Springs Guardian, which then allows him to play Hot Springs Guardian again. Also, the Archmage can be dealt with. I like the Blizzard a lot. It freezes the Hot Springs Guardian that still has the Death Rattle, meaning that Ursi's unlikely to get to play that again next turn. Pinging the face
is lethal,
Pinging
but
the face
Kalimos
is
comes
lethal.
off the top of the deck, and Ursi goes to play it and thinks, oh, I'm in a team game. Hang on, quick check, guys. Is it okay? We're going to make 1-1s, right? No, guys. You're going to make 12 health to your hero.
I think if
And Ursi's play last turn, where he killed his own Hot Spring Guardian to replay it, has got him into a position where they've drawn Another win, 2 in a row from the jaws of defeat. It's not over yet, though. There's an Archmage Antonidas chilling in Chile's hand.
For now, Ursi looking very happy, or for a moment ago looking very happy. Back to his concentrating state now, but small victory for him there. He's not out of the woods just yet. Another fireball being picked up there. Last turn, that would have been lethal. That would have been 15 damage to Ursi's 14 health. Now, 15 damage with another 3 next turn. Saitama's not quite there yet.
Archmage Antonidas is in hand. How can they manipulate this and to do a whole bunch more damage? 12 to face puts your opponent down to 13. You can also do 3 from hand, puts them down to 10. You can Archmage and Ice Block the turn after, which gives you another fireball with another 3 in hand plus a ping.
Saitama's almost there, but Ursi has another Servant of Kalamos, which can get another Hot Springs Guardian or another Kalamos. I think if it were to get another Kalamos, that would pretty much end the game.
I think the play is to hit interface for a whole load and then Archmage into Ice Block. But they're going to go with this.
Excuse me, you are on fire.
And this way they can get more damage out of the Valet.
Okay.
Sure.
There's no lethal now on Chile's side of the board. Servant of Kalamos coming down. Finland has time to play it. They've got Hot Springs Guardian
Again.
in hand as well. Ah, not 2 out of the 3 Servant of Kalamoses have failed to pick up any healing whatsoever. First one got Alakir, which we can already see in the hand. Second one got Hot Springs Guardian, which is okay, but no Kalamos. And the third one's whiffed again.
Hot Spring Guardian did end up being played again, though. Whichever one it was, it's back in hand now or already been played.
Well, both got played twice, thanks to that Spirit Echo.
Spirit Echo has done very sterling work, thanks to the self-kill to keep them alive by 1, recognising that 14 was a very important number.
So,
14 was always a very important number.
Fireball Frostbolt Ping is 10 damage next turn. Antonidas plus Ice Block is another 6 damage soon after, plus another Ping is 7. Healing for 3, if my calculations are correct. That does keep Ursi alive for another 3 or so turns.
Blizzard, though, again. And this is what Freeze Mage does. This is what it's built to do. We'll keep counting every turn, and they're a little bit short of the damage required. But they're buying themselves more time to find more damage. There's not a lot of damage in there, but...
What to do?
And all the time, this Archmage is threatening to do some damage as well.
If Ursi doesn't have any more healing in this deck, then he's not going to last much longer. There may still be a Jinyu Water Speaker. It's possible.
And Chile have to play as if there is, because that Alakir has been in hand a very, very long time. I think they may be able to rule that Alakir out as healing, though, because of the desperation play on their own Hot Spring. However, the Fire Elemental, that was the one that came off the previous?
Yes.
Yeah, that is an unknown card. That could be healing again.
These freeze effects coming in handy.
Not only that, but the taunt is down and there's 3 attack on the board. So this might return to Alakir or play Thing from below just to stop the little tiny bits of chip damage that make all the difference when Freeze Mage starts running out of stuff.
Devolve?
Yeah, getting rid of the card draw.
You could make the argument that Chile will be fatiguing soon and something like Volcano could speed up the process. That being said, you'd also give Chile the rest of their burn damage that they have stored up in the deck. So, double-edged sword there. I think Alakir might have to be the play now, because you can't let these minions hit you.
Right, there's a Thing from below is plenty, though.
Yeah.
But I agree that you've got to do something to stop these minions hitting you. 2 or 3 damage here is absolutely absurd. That's how close this has got. Yeah, just building yet another big board, trying to constantly threaten to proc this block.
Oh. 12. An extra 3 damage means that there is a potential 13 damage this turn again. Antonidas in hand, ready to finish the job.
If they are not scared, yeah, I mean, there's 2 things that can happen. Well, there's 3 things that can happen. First of all, Chile can just go for it. Secondly, Chile can work out how they play on another Kalamos. Thirdly, they can work out that if it's another Kalamos, they can't win, so they go for it anyway. So in a lot of those situations, they just go for it. It depends on the exact composition of the rest of their deck, which we don't know. There's sometimes a second Pyroblast, so I think it's unlikely.
Something worth noting here.
I wonder.
Antonidas seems to have won the battle in most decks versus the second Pyroblast in terms of which
Right.
is better. However, if this Antonidas was a second Pyroblast in this situation,
Yes,
Time runs out on me.
it would have been good.
game would be a little bit faster for the Freeze Mage, as Antonidas' whole purpose this game seems to be create one Fireball, and that's it.
Okay, they're going for create one Fireball. And a 5/7 that gets hexed.
Yeah.
Jade Spirit, not the best pickup. It's been such an intricate game that almost forgetting that Jades were part of the early game that looked so menacing. And Finland's whole game is not dying here, which is really odd, because they will win if they don't die. That's odd. That's how numbers seem to work. But
Numbers do tend to, yeah.
I mean, the Freeze Mage can just run out of things to do here, but I don't think Finland are going to have any more healing. It seems unlikely. As you said a minute ago, they could have a Jinyu Water Speaker hiding in here.
It's
But
possible but unlikely. I
it
do
seems like the
completely agree.
Spirit Echo replaces that in this
Yes.
deck.
I agree. It's still something Saitama will be thinking about here as he waits for Ursi to make his move, waits for the inevitable Hex to come down.
And of course, the Fire Elemental, not only will Ursi not play it as disguise, but he'll also not play it because it's just burst damage when the blocks are down that just kill your opponent.
Finland taking their time to work out exactly what they're going
Right,
to
to
do.
get these attacks in, he's going to have to actually be quite quick, because Wind Fury is a bit of a nuisance to queue sometimes. And yeah, he's queuing all the other attacks first, and he'll queue the second Wind Fury attack right at the end.
It's ignoring the Antonidas and just going out of his way. Does this pop the block? It does! Exactly pop the block.
And that's what took them so long to play the turn, is making sure and double making sure. You know, we all know, having cast one or two Freeze Mage games, how counting can sometimes be difficult under pressure.
Problem for Ursi is that Ice Block is sitting there in Saitama's hand, giving him so much time to use these fireballs. Plus, Frost Nova completely freezes the board and doesn't allow Ursi any space to develop the Fire Elemental to pop the Ice Block.
Is Frost Nova playable though? Can they get away with not using that damage, or do they have to Ice Block, Fireball, Frostbolt face? And just let the block go, but then Fireball would be victory, of course.
Oh, that's fine, right? That still wins you the game.
Except they don't know what that other Fire Elemental is in Ursi's hand, and that may be a factor. They may have just decided, you know what, we have to...
Okay.
Yeah.
Freezing the board has its advantages here because it generates more fireballs, and also, as I said earlier, it prevents any healing from actually being put on the board.
Yeah, they could Volcano, which would make space, but then they can't play the Fire Elemental to proc the block with because it wouldn't cost it would cost too much mana.
Very fiery hand going on there with the mage.
Not having a space to put this Fire Elemental doesn't matter because they'd be dead next turn anyway.
This very much looks like game over to me. There
Yep.
it is. Ursi drops the concede. We are going all the way to the ace match. The ace game to end this match, I should say.
Ace game to end the match. 2 games all between Finland and Chile in what has been one of the longest matches of the entire tournament,
Been
and I'm
intense.
enjoying it because there has been so many technical decisions in this match so far that if you don't like this, you probably don't like Hearthstone.
Probably don't.
Or you probably like Pirates. Don't you? You like Pirates.
Every single turn in this series has been so important. The games have been close all the way through. The Pirate Warrior versus the Paladin was a very quick, it was like a quick break from the longer games, but now going in to the final match, Topa Pablo versus Janetsky, Druid versus Priest.
And Ursi must be exhausted. I know it's a team effort. I know it's a 3-on-4 today, but Ursi must be absolutely shattered. He's had to drive, and being the driver with 2 people in your ear can definitely be awkward. I've done enough arena co-ops to know what it's like having someone shout at how bad you are. When you're good and people are telling you other things, that must be so conflicting.
Now, we've talked about the 50-50s between Druids as to what the deck could be a lot over the last couple of days, because it has been pretty much a 50-50 between the token Druids and the Jade Druid.
Yes.
Any thoughts?
If it's Jade Druid, Chile are in a good spot. If it's not,
Token Druid, they're in a bad spot.
then they're in a messy spot.
Messy. Maybe not quite bad.
Yeah,
but
it's an interesting one, that, because the priest can just whiff. But
it's very early to say, but I'd say maybe 55-45 towards
I'll go with
the
that.
priest.
Yeah, that'd be my
being
instinct. I'm
favoured.
not going to nail my colours to that mask, but definitely the Jade Druid is a very, very solid position, because they just outvalue the priest in the mid game, which is where the priest is slightly weak while they're setting everything up.
Now, Janetsky being the second player for Finland to have had to play 2 games today.
It's not Finland, it's Winland.
It's not Finland, it is Winland, yeah.
But it's not Chile, it's hot stuff.
Topa Pablo also... Neil, please. It's been a long series. How much... Okay. Can we go to the start of the game, please?
And so, Priest versus Mystery Druid. Mystery Priest as well, but they all play roughly the same way. I'm so sorry, Dan. I'll grow up one day.
That one really hurt me. Yeah, so Dragon Priest and the Lyra Miracle Priests both being popular. Haven't had a Silence Priest yet in the last few days. It seems to have been like the first.
Right, we saw the one Lyra Priest with the combo, but
with
not
the Blade
silence
Master,
in
but
it.
yeah, no silence mechanics in there, at least not that we saw. It's going to be the Token Druid.
Let's see how the Priest fends this off. And they may choose to keep the anti-aggro start, because if it's against the Jades anyway, all you can do is hope to draw into your mid-game. So
Shadow Word Pain is fine.
they'll
It's
keep
good
the pain.
against
Will they keep the Talon Priest, maybe?
I'm not 100% sure about Talon Priest, but Shadow Word Pain is also good against Jade Behemoths.
Yeah.
So, which wouldn't be the first time we've seen.
And on the
Jade Behemoths
play,
that
having
early.
something 2-3 might not be the worst. The Talon Priest is interesting to me here. Putting a 3-4 on the board, I know it's only a 3-4. Forget the fact about the buff, but it does take down most of the minions on the other side, even after they've been buffed.
That's true. A 3-mana 3-4 in itself is a good body against aggro.
Yeah.
We heard
it may be
this-
a bit slow, that's the problem that they might have. But if you're painting something, then playing a 3-4, maybe it's okay.
We had this debate with the Manic Soulcaster back in the Reno Mage era, where some players were running that near the start of the expansion, and they were saying it's got a cool effect against control, and against aggro, it's not bad to just drop on turn 3.
But they threw it away because they have so many cheap cards like Potion of Madness that are just better.
And pick it
Makes
up.
a lot of sense. Picks it up and picks up the 3-drop, and suddenly this curve looks really good. Although the Soul Priest, in some situations, just won't get played in this because you need to heal.
Chile's start there with the Pirates going in to the Ravasaur Runt next turn, putting down Enchanted Raven to almost guarantee that this Runt goes off. And look how awkward this is for Potion of Madness. Potion of Madness gets sort of 1 minion here.
Not ideal. We may see Shadow Word Pain on
Yeah.
the Raven, because if that Raven gets buffed...
Yep.
God, if Raven gets buffed...
Oh, well, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants to see that. So, yeah, Shadow... He's pretty buff already, to be fair. Shadow Word Painting on the 2-2, almost certain, into making a 3-4. And actually then the turn after, the Potion of Madness plus make another 3-4, which will buff to make a 3-6. Is actually a really big board.
Pretty good board for turn 2, though. Divine, shielded mini-bot.
Not a bad card.
A beast shielded mini-bot, so gets buffed by Mark of Yesharaj and draws a card.
Ravenous Run entering the Hall of Fame, coming soon.
Flaming Claws, though, realistically also looks like a pretty good pick.
It does.
May bait out an early Shadow Word Death, and also just may pressure the board for a lot of damage. He's going to go
What they're
for
going to
it.
go with.
I like it. 2 mana 5/2. Good card. Arcanine Circle, though, is going to be very good at dealing with this specific deck on turn 4.
Yeah, depending on the health total, but it should be fine.
Uh-huh.
They're likely to be in the high teens or in the low 20s, which is absolutely fine to not be able to heal. Worst case, you have to find a way to bump off your own Soul Priest, but yeah, it should be good.
I like the Talon Priest here. It's not giving away the game about the Arcanine. Wow, Topa Pablo picking up Savage Roar.
5, 6, 7,
16?
plus 8, yeah, 15, I think, no hero power.
Yeah, 15.
15, they're just going to do it because they know that from this point onwards, the Priest will start to gain control of the situation, so forcing through the damage, getting rid of the 3-4 in case he gets buffed, but now Soul Priest into Circle of Healing while still on 17 is looking good.
Yeah, but it also doesn't deal with that many minions, you're doing it. And Topo Pablo still has 3 cards in hand. That could include Living Mana.
Yeah.
And you don't have anything to do with that. Potion of Madness, sure, that's fun. You get to steal one of their mana crystals, essentially, as well. Maybe Injured Blade Master Circle is tempting here.
Maybe, but you would take at least 6 from those minions
Yeah,
while you're
that's
waiting. It's a lot to take. But yeah, the good thing with this Soul Priest is it's so easy to get rid of, so you don't really miss a healing turn most of the time.
Argent Squire. Nice way of filling out the curve with War Leader, although you don't really want War Leader to just get traded into.
Protects me.
I wonder what you're going to do here.
This is fine. I like this a lot from Topo Pablo. Getting rid of the Arcanite Soul Priest. Putting 2 minions on the board. Mark of the Lotus, Mark of Yasiraj, Power of the Wild. All pretty threatening here. Binding Heal.
With the Blade Master.
My goodness, that is a pretty good combo.
Make a 4-7, go back to 22. They have to consider if they want to heal face, just because they can do this next turn, but they don't want this to get killed by anything, and so they just do it now. It wastes, in sort of inverted commas, 3 healing, but it also uses 4 additional healing on the minion, which is a fair enough trade. They must feel very, very comfortable now. The only way you can really lose is if that early board goes wide with a Savage Roar or the Living Mana, as you described.
Right. Not much happening for Topo Pablo here. No way of getting rid of that Blade Master. Well, I lie. Swipe plus here. Oh no, you can't even swipe in here, but yeah, no way of getting rid of that Injured Blade Master. So everything just has to go into the face, and you have to just be prepared for Janetsky to start picking off your minions one by one. Not only that, the Potion of Madness sits there in his hand, waiting to pick off minions, well, more than one at a time.
Yeah, and your smaller guys are doing nothing because Janetsky's just going to heal his face. And this is a whole bunch of nothing going on here. But the board is getting wide. Oh, Shadow Word Pain. Get rid of this War Leader if they want to. Make sure that nothing bad's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, Potion of Madness not doing all that much.
No, it's surprisingly poor, isn't it? There's so many 1-2s hanging around.
And no 2-1s to clean it up.
Right.
But yeah, no reason not to play the Shadow Word Pain here. Topo Pablo not looking happy about that. Cabal Talon Priest going to buff up the Injured Blade Master, making sure that thing never dies, and every turn from now on, it's going to pick things off. I imagine Janetsky is still pretty worried about Living Mana, but as it happens, he doesn't actually have anything to worry about right now.
Yeah, he'll be trying to make sure that he gets as wide a board as possible for that turn, because the Priest isn't killing the Druid anytime soon. And so they do need to find a way to deal with that Living Mana before it pops up. But it looks like they should be able to deal with it. They're on 20, so the Living Mana would do maybe 10, maybe 12, depending how it all works out. They would still have an extra turn to pick it up, plus healing. They're probably going to be okay here, but it's not dead yet.
Yeah, it's definitely not over just yet. Though that 55-45 we mentioned earlier, it's looking like Janetsky's fallen in the 55 category as predicted.
Looking good so far. This is a really difficult swipe. You're playing to your outs, and you can't afford to hold it back because you may draw Living Mana and just want to play that next turn.
Yep.
And so choosing to remove the minion, and this is playing to your outs, basically.
That's what you're counting on. You're just counting on picking up the Living Mana. Unfortunately
Wow.
for Topo Pablo, Living Mana, even if picked up off the top, next turn, perfect answer to this horrible situation. It's not quite enough.
Could use the Potion of Madness. It would have the net effect of just proccing a Divine Shield, but it doesn't seem to be doing much else. But they're going to wait one more turn just in case a 2-2 comes up, and they want to make sure they get the heal in the face every single turn. Of course they do.
It's going to be very hard for Topo Pablo to pick up the burst damage he needs. Mark of Yasiraj not going to draw anything. Going to make the Argent Squire a significant threat. 4-4 with Divine Shield isn't bad at all. It doesn't beat a 4-6.
Doesn't beat a 4. Well, it kind of does. It draws with 1.
Yeah, okay. That's, yeah.
Over time, and the damage is still chipping away here. Chile have got Finland down to 12.
Yeah.
Finland have got pressing matters on their hands.
Right underneath that Injured Blade Master's nose, that Argent Squire is just chipping away, exactly as you said, chipping away bit by bit.
And this is decision time for Finland. They really don't want to eat another 4, but they obviously don't want to Dragonfire, because the only realistic way they lose is the Living Mana. But so by doing this, that's another 4 damage they're going to take in the face. But it might be the last significant damage they take all game. Oh, there's 2 more. Such a difficult turn here.
So holding onto Bluegill Warrior could lead to a better Savage Roar.
Right.
But it won't quite be enough, because the Argent Squire definitely gets destroyed this turn. Then again, is there actually a reason to play the Bluegill now?
I mean, you can kill the 4-2. You can go face for 2. There won't be anything that costs 9, so living mana is definitely not a problem. Also, if your minions are healing... Let's say you play the Bluegill and go face, but hit the 4-3 with your own face, just because. Your opponent will have the choice of just trading into both the minions, which he probably will take, but he won't be able to heal his own face if he wants to heal a minion to keep it alive, for instance.
All of these thoughts are going through Topo Pablo's head right now.
The likelihood is he just sticks everything into the face, but he may keep the Bluegill.
Yeah, as we can see, there's a Potion of Madness in Janetsky's hand, which means Bluegill is going to die one way or another, even if it means hitting the Argent Squire. Looks like he's actually going to deal with the stronger injured Blade Master. Argent Squire going to continue hitting the face. There's no reason to trade with that.
That minion will not be played, I suspect.
Bit risky, that, isn't
It
it?
looks a little bit dangerous. You can't get rid of your own guy without a Dragonfire.
Looks like Janetsky got pretty much the perfect answer to the Token Druid in his deck choice.
I think the Druid needs to go living mana into another living mana.
Yeah, yeah. Binding Heal, specifically, being a card very good in this matchup.
Really has been good.
And you're right, that is the only out for Topo Pablo.
There may be a Finger chilling around somewhere.
Yeah, but then Janetsky just doesn't put anything on the board.
I guess.
At least until Finger's attacked once.
Sure. Let's see what happens. Should be really strong for Finland.
Oh! Good call. There's Dragonfire Potion, but then if
Living
Topo
mana
Pablo
would be
picks up
an
Living
out,
Mana... Okay. Okay.
And they don't want to play this Okanai because then they lose the ability to heal, and 13 is a little bit precarious, and so is 11, but
So-
they heal them first.
So I still can't help but wonder if Janetsky does nothing. Priest of the Feast, with Dragonfire Potion, heals for 3, but also puts Priest of the Feast on 1 health. I don't think that's playable this turn.
They're going to be so scared of living mana. This is how they lose, is living mana comes out here, and then they play a minion, and something gets swiped and traded into, and Finger goes crazy. Have they used both swipes? They've used one for sure.
Yeah, I only remember them using one.
Okay.
Topo Pablo playing this incredibly well, by the way, knowing when to make the trade, knowing which minion to trade the Bluegill Warrior into. Priest of the Feast comes down now on its own. This could be punished if Topo Pablo did pick up a second swipe.
Right. Well, Warleader, not quite enough, but you can play it and then not attack with Finger. Can you play it and then attack with Finger even?
I think if you're playing it, you're definitely attacking, or the War Leader just gets destroyed and you haven't made any progress. Or you just don't play it, wait for 1 more damage, and the next turn play it.
Yeah, I think you probably have to wait and hope to draw another Murloc, Bluegill.
Or anything that buffs
Bluegill Warrior or whatever, yeah.
Or anything that buffs Finger. Marco
Sure.
the Lotus would even do it.
Yep, so they're just going to wait most likely here. Again, they're not actually under any pressure of dying. They're under pressure of things spiraling out of control,
Yeah.
but they're not actually going to die anytime soon. So if they have a strategy that involves drawing 2 or 3 cards, they are going to get the time to execute that strategy.
It's interesting that Janetsky decided to play Priest of the Feast. Quite risky, because there is the chance of it proccing the Finger. And also, it didn't actually get any value itself. It's just there as a 3/6 minion. On the flip side, it can go out of control soon, depending on what Janetsky picks up. Okay.
Topo Pablo did make the top 8 of the America's Summer, don't forget. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the America's Summer. So he has got experience under pressure like this. Whoops.
I was about to just say how good that play was, because if Janetsky wants to heal his face, great. Priest of the Feast does get destroyed next turn. Hero Power, Murloc will need a trade. And if Janetsky decided to heal the minion, then he's not healing the face. However, Binding Heal solves all of Janetsky's problems right now.
Heal your own face for 8.
Yeah.
And then 2. And suddenly the game has reset nearly back to the start.
23 health at this late stage in the game. Chile must be reeling right now.
Yeah, it's so hard.
that
They
does
did
it as
pick up
well.
the Mark of the Lotus.
That procs the Finja. I think we've only seen one War Leader so far, so sorry, one Bluegill so far, so we should get a Bluegill Warrior and a War Leader from this Finja. But then Dragonfire...
Assuming there are no other crazy Murlocs in there, I agree with you, that makes a lot of sense, which is going to go face. You see it attacking from out of the deck there. Topo Pablo knows exactly what's coming.
Oh, my apologies, a War Leader was played earlier, I remember
Right,
now.
okay.
It was Shadow Word Pain was used on it.
And now they're going to have to Dragonfire.
And then Living Mana actually does things.
And then Living Mana actually does things. The deck is thinner now than it was as well, and there's 2 Living Manas in there. And yeah, Topo Pablo's allowing himself a small smile. He knows he's not in front, probably. What else can they do? I mean, you have to look at, is Soul Priest and Shoot a Guy good? It is not.
No.
They won't be doing that. So Dragonfire, and if Living Mana comes off the top, this game is not over.
This could... Topo Pablo really has been hanging on with everything he's got.
So Living Mana, I say, is good, and it is very good, but they will be able to maybe start shooting things down, and Potion of Madness, you know, a lot of these guys would get killed if it happened.
That's not a card.
It's not, but again, there's still no pressure coming from Finland. There's still a little bit more time. But there's only one Finja, and the Finja has gone. Oh. So Living Mana now is going to need backup from Mark of the Lotus. We've seen at least one of those as well, and possibly both, actually. I think we may have seen both.
Yeah, Power of the Wild also does it if it is in the deck.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it is. Some of the
And they've decided, you know what, we can't allow Chile to keep having this time. We've got a way of dealing with the Living Mana. Let's just put some damage on the board, because they are going to draw Living Mana if we let them have 17 turns or whatever the current rate is. Let's make that change.
That's just a Firefly.
Yeah, that is just a fly. Yeah, 2 1-2s.
It's just a Firefly and a Flame Elemental. I apologize, Flame Elemental. Didn't mean to miss you out there.
Flame Elemental gets remembered by Shamans. That's enough. And Rogues. And Warlocks. And Druids.
Yeah, it's
People like
pretty much everywhere.
this Firefly card.
Circular Healing, another method of dealing with Living Mana. Doesn't do that much now. Janetsky may decide to play the Circle of Healing now. It weakens the Arcanine, which actually could be something he wants.
Yeah, it puts it into shoot your own Arcanine range, which is probably not the worst case scenario. It's not pretty, right?
It's wasteful.
It's the whole point of playing this was to make sure that they could put some pressure on. That pressure's going to go again now. It's surprising how resilient this Druid deck is, considering it's drawn not particularly well either.
That's the thing about playing against these aggressive decks. These aggressive decks which are able to sustain and continue coming up with more and more and more stuff to throw at you. You don't just need to survive against them, you actually need to beat them at some point as well.
Right. And beating people with control decks at the moment quickly can be difficult because of the nature of how control decks are built, which is making the meta very interesting. And this is why a lot of people only play one Innovate in this deck.
Yeah. Topo Pablo just not getting there.
No, but this will just be played as a 3-2, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it won't, but at some point you need to play something. Maybe they keep it because it counters Living Mana into Power of the Wild or buffs in general, with the Holy Nova and the Pyromancer being able to do 3 instead of 2.
Okay. At this rate, the Priest will be back in full health again soon.
Yeah, and Chile can't play this Firefly, of course, because of this North Side Cleric.
Put yourself in Topo Pablo's position here. You're an aggressive Druid deck. It's turn 50.
Ow.
It's not turn 50. It's somewhere around turn 50.
Yep.
And your opponent's still got 22 health, and you have nothing in your hand.
You can't play these Fireflies because that just ruins your clock. Okay, they're going to play them because they're going to play them all, okay.
Sure.
And then draw Savage Draw is another out.
And then draw Savage Draw when your opponent has no way of removing these.
Sure.
To be fair, if Holy Nova is used now, suddenly Living Mana is relevant again.
Yeah? But they won't use Holy Nova now, I don't think, because Savage Draw isn't savage enough.
It's not.
They can draw 2 cards now, that's what they're going to do. This is what Finland was scared of. So I imagine that this is what Chile was scared of. So I imagine Finland will just draw a card and see where they stand here. Getting the Radiant Elemental is another thing they can just put on the board in a minute.
Yeah, Radiant Elemental is probably good for pretty much just that. Pressure on the board. Potion of Madness, beautiful play here. Able to clear up 2 of these 1/2 minions thanks to the Wild Pyromancer, turning them all into 1/1s.
And then they can draw 3 million cards like this.
Well, that's a game ender if I ever did see one.
Looks good, although... I mean, it's got to draw something good at some point because they put these cards in their deck for a reason.
This is a very anti-aggro deck.
Really, really is. It's a
Genetics.
very, very good build here to take on this Druid with. And they can just kill things however they want now.
And there you go, shot, that'll do it. Powered Shield, buff up the Pyromancer further, allow it to continue doing AoE for many turns to come.
Yeah, and gone full Northshire. So just going to draw their whole deck. There's Elise, card that they urgently require to, well, they don't urgently require, they're going to win, but the card that will actually help them finish this game off. There's a Living Mana.
Hey, look, there it is.
And Topa Pablo just shakes his head. Where have you been all game?
It doesn't even matter anymore. While Pyromancer paired with any 2 of these spells in Janetsky's hand will get rid of these floating mana crystals. No, they're not floating. They're actually standing in Trent form. But
There's Lyra as well, and Topa Pablo knows that there's a bazillion ways that things can be dealt with here. Just by having the Pyromancer on the board against 9 cards should be enough.
Finland, Janetsky actually getting rid of the Pyromancer. It looks like he's going to go with the Holy Nova to deal with this and probably play Lyra as well.
Yeah, he doesn't want to draw any more cards. Just accident lie this way.
So Lyra, Holy Nova. He doesn't mind generating.
Cool, yeah, have some more cards by all means.
Just doesn't want to get them from his deck. Greater Healing Potion, not a bad anti-aggro card itself, when you're in this position anyway.
I think that Finland might win this game.
It's close. It's not close. It's far from close.
It's not close. It is far from close.
It's pretty much as far from close as you can get, actually. There's the second swipe.
Just in time.
And
Topa Pablo gives it up. Janetsky raises his arms, and Finland have ground out one of the toughest wins of the tournament. Several fantastic games in there. If you didn't see all of that one, if you did see all of that one, thanks for staying with us. If you didn't see all of that one, check out the VOD later because that was one great match of Hearthstone.
Certainly one worthy of the Year of the Mammoth.
Yeah, mammoth match. And
Even though there were no
Finland
mammoths.
is indeed Winland, and there were no mammoths.
So congratulations to Finland. How many ace matches have we gone down to? Series 1 today was an ace match, right?
Yeah.
And then Series 2 was a 3-0, and this was an ace match again. Do you think we can maybe get 4 out of 5 ace matches today? All of the 3-2s.
I just blame you and Gaskin.
Okay.
All my matches have been good.
That's true. That's true. Ours was the only. It was still exciting. Sometimes 3-0s.
So we'll get 3 ace matches today, and then you and Gaskin can take away the one that we feel is the big one, the one where we are not biased at all. Let's just get the notes out ready.
All right, we have an interview lined up with a member of the winning team. I almost said living team then. Janetsky, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Firstly, congratulations for your win. That was an incredibly long series of Hearthstone. Does a really long series like that cause you guys to struggle, or? Go
I
on.
mean, a bit, of course, but I mean, if of course helps that you're playing with 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
Kafron was with us on the call, and it's
cool.
like, yeah, so he was with us, and then we made the
great.
call like when we were submitting like the player orders, that nobody plays like 2 games in a row. That's like Ursa is number 2 and 4, not number 2 and 3, and that's like you get a break, and then you can pilot again.
That's a really good
The match
idea.
was long, but it was pretty good.
The Paladin game in particular with the Sunkeeper Tarim and the Megasaurs, how much were you discussing each turn, what you're going to do 5 turns in advance in that one, how you're going to win that match?
A lot of turns went to rope, right? And when it goes to rope, it's like do something, do the play that you want to do. Like the pilot has to do something, and then Ursi missed the 1 token, right, with the Sunkeeper Tarim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a misplay, of course. But then in the end, it was like we can't lose this match. If we don't go all in and we eventually win the match.
It
like
was
the priest can't win.
It was a very skillful game from both sides. There were a few moments on each side where there were struggles, though. In particular, we thought with Chile, they went to the rope a lot and had to make some very, very fast last-minute decisions. Now, we were talking earlier about how Finland has a great Hearthstone community and that you guys practice together a lot. Do you think that helps you in the Hearthstone Global Games?
I'm pretty sure it does. Like, we all have been playing together in the past, like grinding tournaments, grinding ladder, like chilling at the LAN events. Like, it's not the first time that we do stuff together. It obviously helps.
Congratulations, Finland today is indeed Winland. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Okay, well, that is the end of game number 3. So game number 3, yeah, we are in game number 3. It was a long one.
It was indeed a long one.
Completely lost track of where we are today now.
Quick resume of what happened there. Chile taking the 1-0 lead. Finland grinding back that incredible Paladin match. And then Wampi winning an equally incredible match as well. You know, it was a lot quicker. The Freeze Mage match was... I can't... Use some word. Tell me a word that isn't incredible.
That was some solid, fair, straight to the point,
grind.
Honest Hearthstone action going on there. Both teams giving it everything they had. There was one fast game, obviously, again, the aggressive Paladin versus the Pirate Warrior. Wampi taking it with the Pirate Warrior in the end. But let's take one more look at Group E. Finland now with a 1-1 score, 5-5 game record. Everything has been very close.
Yeah, this whole group is going to go down to the wire. As you can see, nobody really thrashing anybody. Finland, again, as I said yesterday, they're far from finish. Every time.
I'm so glad this series is over. I don't know how much more of that I can take.
You've got weeks of this.
Okay, well, just so well performed by Finland. They admitted the mistake, the Janetsky mistake.
Yeah.
I was wondering when we called it out, because it's the kind of thing you don't typically expect. It was a long
Especially
game.
from this team, who have been mechanically incredibly strong all the way through.
Oh,
and so
one of the most interesting turns.
This play was incredible, obviously using the sudden Genesis to suddenly genocide Leroy, which just stayed on the board at 6-1.
Oh boy, and the potential of so many Shaku draws there. That's why Janetsky did that. He wanted to squeeze out as much value as possible.
Yeah, it felt like he'd made a mistake by not attacking first, but he hadn't. He'd wanted to make a stealth minion and not worry about the card because he knew what his turn was going to be, so having a stealth minion made more sense.
But the brawl ruined everything. Ruined his dreams. The Shaku without stealth being the one that survives and being executed.
Interesting what they said there, by the way, in that interview, that they all have one game off. Kufner was able to get into the chat today,
That's really
which
good.
is allowed,
Yep.
and I believe that APX Void may do similar for some of it later.
Okay.
He is going to probably be chatting right up to the point where he boards a plane. So he's going to do as much as he can for his team in the next one. But yeah, this team working very well with a lot of practice of working as a team in what is obviously a team event.
Yeah, and it does help. We've talked about this all the way through the series. We talked about how Chile may have suffered as a result, but I'm even more confident than ever now, thanks to Janetsky's confirmation there, that their team play is one of the most important parts as to why they won. The fact that Kuften was able to play on comms with them as well shows that they really did come together. They're taking this very seriously.
This was game of the day. If you didn't see this one, have another look. Yes, the Priest does in fact have 2 Sherazins in play, but it didn't have many cheap spells, and so they had to use them very, very sparingly. And as you can see, Finland at the end here, even though they're into fatigue, look at this hand. They've managed the resources perfectly, just enough to get rid of what they need to get rid of, and just enough to generate win conditions.
Then there was the Jade Shaman versus the Freeze Mage, but the Shaman wasn't quite able to generate enough healing. Several Servant of Kalamos played. Only one of them were able to get a Hot Springs Guardian. No extra Kalamos generated.
Killing their own Hot Springs Guardian to get it back in their hand at one point for an extra 3 health.
Thanks to the
Bought
Spirit
them a
Echo.
heck of a lot of time. It bought them this turn, which looked like it could potentially have swung it around.
I honestly thought once the Kalamos came down that Finland were going to take this one, but it was not meant to be. There you go, there's a Hot Springs Guardian.
And I'm
Spirit
glad
Echo
they lost
there.
this game, because it would have denied one of the best best of fives we've ever seen.
Agreed.
So by losing this game, sorry Finland, I know you'll probably be a bit tired
We
after
won
it.
anyway.
We managed to get a great best of 5 out of it.
Actually, they might be complaining if the
If we've got tiebreakers, I take it all back.
And look at the hand of Saitama here. 3 fireballs, well, it was 4 fireballs, 2 frostbots with Antonidas on the board. Ursi decided in that vital turn to just go face everything, leave Antonidas alive, but the ice block ruined his day there.
Is someone injured?
And out of the final game, the game of attrition, where Topo Pabo just couldn't quite get the living mana early enough.
Those highlights were longer than the Argentina match.
Whew, what a series! Whew. Right.
Right, that's us done for the day. It's not. You don't go anywhere. We've got 2 more matches coming up.
Next up is Canada versus Belgium, and after that, UK versus Romania. Some of the most exciting games of the tournament coming up very soon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.